Is holding a regular board meeting tonight, and we invite participation either remotely or in person. Directions on how to participate via Zoom are available at nvusd.org/board. The open session part of the meeting tonight will begin around 7 p.m. Item B, public comment on closed session items. Before going into closed session, the board is available for public comment on closed session agenda items. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on closed session agenda items?
There is no public comment on closed session items.
All right, seeing that there are none, the board will now adjourn into closed session. All right, I will reconvene this meeting to open session at 7:08. Good evening. My name is David T. Gracia, and this is the Napa Valley Unified School District Board of Education. The NVUSD Board of Education is holding a regular board meeting tonight. We invite participation either remotely or in person. Directions on how to participate via Zoom are available at nvusd.org/board. Interpretation in Spanish is available for tonight's virtual board meeting. Our interpreters are Isidro Mencos and Francisco Mesa. One of the interpreters will now translate the directions on our English channel so our Spanish-speaking families may hear the instructions.
Buenas noches, esta es una reunión del Distrito Escolar Unificado de Napa Valley. La reunión de hoy va a tener servicios de interpretación simultánea en español. Para poder acceder a la interpretación simultánea, en breves momentos ustedes van a ver en la parte de abajo de su pantalla un icono del globo terráqueo. Pueden hacer clic allí y escoger entonces el idioma Spanish o español. Si están en su teléfono móvil o en su tableta, van a ver tres puntitos en la parte superior o inferior derecha de su pantalla de Zoom y dice More o Más. Allí le pueden hacer clic y van a encontrar también los servicios de interpretación donde podrán elegir su idioma. Muchas gracias.
Okay, thank you. Can we please start with an attendance roll call from Vera Morales, Executive Assistant?
Yes, Student Board Member McGrath.
Present.
Trustee Gracia.
Present.
Trustee Water.
Present.
Trustee Reiser.
Present.
Trustee Shu.
Present.
Trustee Jankowicz.
Present.
Trustee Hart.
Present.
Trustee Gonzalez Mares.
Present.
Quorum present. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, now we'll move on to item E1, report on closed session. Trustee Reiser, do we have a report on closed session agenda items?
Yes. Regarding D1, student discipline, with respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed session pursuant to Ed Code 35146 and 48912.20, Government Code Section 49060 and 49078, and the Family Rights and Privacy Act. Regarding student matters, D1A, expulsions, the board recommends the suspended expulsion for student 111-62023A.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a first by Trustee Chu, a second by Trustee Reiser. Ms. Morales, can we please have a roll call vote on this matter?
Yes, Trustee Gracia.
Aye.
Trustee Water.
Aye.
Trustee Reiser.
Aye.
Trustee Shu.
Aye.
Trustee Jankowicz.
Aye.
Trustee Hart.
Aye.
Trustee Gonzalez Mares.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And regarding D1B, readmitted expulsions, the board recommends for the readmission from expulsion for student 01192023A.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by Trustee Chu, second by Trustee Reiser. Ms. Morales, can we please have a roll call vote on this matter?
Yes, Trustee Gracia.
Aye.
Trustee Water.
Aye.
Trustee Reiser.
Aye.
Trustee Shu.
Aye.
Trustee Jankowicz.
Aye.
Trustee Hart.
Aye.
Trustee Gonzalez Mares.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And regarding item D2A, personnel, in closed session, the board took action to approve the following staff recommendations effective December 1st, 2023. The appointment of Claudia Alcantar Mendoza to the position of Fiscal Services Director, Level 3.
Dr. Massetti, is Claudia available tonight?
She is. I'd like to invite Ms. Claudia Alcantar Mendoza, who is being appointed tonight, like Trustee Reiser said, to the Director 3 position in Fiscal Services. And on behalf of the Superintendent's Office and the School Board, we want to congratulate you. And you can have this opportunity to address the board.
Yes, good evening, Dr. Musetti and board members. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I would like to thank, first of all, Assistant Superintendent Rob and my Executive Director, Jenna, who have been nothing but supportive during this whole transition time. I'm really excited to start this new position, so thank you.
All right, well, welcome.
Congratulations.
Have a great evening.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And then on to, the clerk is busy tonight. D4A, Conference on Real Property. In closed session, the board reviewed and considered 3 proposals for purchase of the district's Carneros property located at 1680 Los Carneros Avenue in Napa. The board unanimously selected the proposal from Barry Honig and Brian Kane as the most desirable proposal and directed staff to negotiate a purchase and sale agreement to bring back to the board. This proposal is deemed most desirable because it included competitive terms and proposes a realistic use of the property given existing zoning considerations.
Do we have any further to report?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, one more. And item D7B, with respect to items related to existing litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9, the board approved a settlement agreement to resolve a student's educational claims.
And does that,
That concludes my clerk's report.
thank you. All right, we'll move on to item E2, which is a flag salute. Trustee Gonzalez Myers, would you lead us tonight?
Absolutely. We can all please rise. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. This meeting is live streamed and recorded via Zoom and will be archived on the district's YouTube channel. For a detailed review of any meeting agenda item, the archive video can be referenced on the district's webpage at nvusd.org. The process for public comment can also be found on the district's webpage. Item E4, approval of the agenda. I move that we move item J1A to right after item G, public comment, but otherwise approve the agenda as written.
I'll move to approve.
All right, so I made a first, second by trustee Chu. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. All right, E5, approval of minutes. E5A, September 28th, 2023. I'll move to approve.
Second.
First by myself, a second by trustee Hart. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions?
I abstain.
And trustee Chu?
I abstain.
And trustee Reiser?
Is that one abstain? Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Recognition of visitors and employee organizations. Dr. Massetti, do we have any visitors in attendance?
Yes, Yes, I'd like to welcome Mr. Troy Giddings, who's here from NVEA this evening. Would you like to address the board, Mr. Giddings? Not tonight? Okay, great. And I do not see any of our representatives from NAPS nor CSEA this evening. President Gracia. I'm sorry. Oh, of course. Thank you. We do have a special guest in the audience tonight. We have council member Liz Alessio here from the city of Napa. Council member Alessio, would you like to address the board this evening and say hello? We also know you're here in your capacity as a board member for NVTA, but we always like a hello from Liz Alessia.
There's a button on the bottom there.
Here we go. Well, outside of City Council, this is my next favorite board. Thank you again for just your ongoing hard work. You have many challenges and issues that you face that are very sensitive, that take thoughtful and mindful consideration as you balance what's best for the students and the future of this community. So I'm happy to be here and, of course, be of support.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item F, recognition of students of the month. Item F1, Napa High School. Will Principal Ainsworth please present the students of the month for Napa High School?
So thank you, Dr. Massetti, Board of Trustees, Finn. Tonight's actually a really cool night. Normally, I always tell you, like, this is the best night ever and the most special night, but this night is even more so. So we started our evening at about 6 in the library with our Avid Family Night, submitting our college applications. So the two young women we're presenting started there this evening and hit their college applications to CSUs this evening, which was really, really cool. So yeah. Then we get to come here and honor them for being student of the month, and then they're going to rush out of here and run down the hall for our band performance, excuse me, this evening. So it's a really cool thing going on, and a lot of exciting things happening at Napa High. So tonight we first start with Katie Barcenas, and both of these are from our Avid family, and so we're excited to present them to you tonight. But Katie is a self-starter. She's one of those people that is capable of forging her own path. She spent time at an FBI camp this summer. She's a person that, she's the person in the class that remembers everybody's birthdays and the events and connects with people that way. So quite an impressive student that you're going to get to hear from tonight. So Katie, come on up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Katie Barcenas Sendejas, and I'm a senior at Napa High School. I'd like to start this off by thanking the school board for this incredible recognition for my excellence in school, as well as my teachers for noticing my hardships, because without their nominations, I wouldn't be standing here today. Along with my parents, who have been understanding and supportive, as well as giving me space when it is necessary. How did I get to where I am today? To be completely transparent, my junior year was filled with obstacles I didn't know I'd ever overcome. From my academics complexing, things that occurred in my personal life, and maintaining a job where I was treated less than a person, and the weight on my shoulders that nearly broke me. My mental health was at an all-time low, and my academics were beneath me. I'd walk into a class and meet a person who'd later metamorphosize into a genuine friend that changed me as a person. Her name is Anita Diaz, and she has shown me to come out of my shell and become a gentle leader. She has had a great influence on me and pushed me to become vice president last year of a volunteer organization called Key Club, where I do volunteer work locally. I was even able to partner up with Napa RCD last year and host an annual Earth Day cleanup. I attend volunteer opportunities I started attending volunteer opportunities specifically with the field I want to enter in, which is criminal justice. With these strong intentions, I was able to apply and attend a workshop where I was able to work with FBI agents in San Francisco. I was awarded with a certificate for successfully completing the FBI Teen Academy sponsored by the San Francisco Division and demonstrating a commitment to learn more about the FBI. This was one of my proudest accomplishments, along with this recognition today, because it consisted of 9 hours in Hayward and I was surrounded with unfamiliar faces. Nonetheless, the anxiety grew fainter on the account of my pure passion for crime. I also dedicate 2 hours attending peer court in the Napa County Courthouse, where I can examine how hearings happen, procedures made for sentencing minors. With this in mind, I will attend a 4-year university after high school. I just submitted my applications for Chico State, Sacramento State, Sonoma State, East Bay, and Long Beach. I will major in criminal justice and/or criminology and minor in sociology to have a better understanding of our society. So in the future, I will put my best foot forward in giving aid to my community. Thank you.
So our next student is Perla Maciel. And I'm going to keep my comments brief because her words will say enough, but I'm going to use our teacher who nominated her, Mr. Sam Urena, her AVID teacher, who basically describes it as every AVID class has that AVID big sister, and Perla is that AVID big sister. She ties people together, she mothers, she takes care of people, and that's her giving nature, all the while being extremely excellent in everything else she does along the way as a model for everybody. So Perla, come on up.
Good evening, Dr. Massetti, NVUSD Board, and community members. I am deeply honored to be recognized as NVUSD Board Student of the Month for December. I extend my gratitude to the school board for bestowing upon me this honor. I also want to acknowledge Dr. Ainsworth for his unwavering support that enabled me to attend this event. Prior to this meeting, my AVID classmates and I participated in a ceremony where we submitted our college applications. As you can see, I'm donning my color guard uniform because following this speech, I will be performing in my final band concert. This evening will undoubtedly be a cherished moment in my high school journey. I would like to thank my AVID teacher, Mr. Ureña, for nominating me for this award and for his constant support. He encourages me to be a better version of myself in all aspects in life, academically and personally. Le quiero dar las mayores gracias a mi familia, especialmente a mis padres. Gracias por tantos sacrificios que han hecho, como el traerme a este país exactamente hoy, hace 16 años, para que tenga todas las oportunidades que hoy se me presentan. Este reconocimiento no es solo para mí, es para ustedes también. Con mucho agradecimiento y honor digo que soy su hija. Yo sé que el esfuerzo ha sido grande, que se siente como que ha habido más obstáculos que ventajas, pero el hecho que estoy aquí es un logro para todos, no solo para mi familia, pero también para mi comunidad. I would like to give the biggest thank you to my family, especially to my parents. Thank you so much for the sacrifice you have made, like bringing me into this country 16 years ago to this day. So I have all the opportunities that are presented to me today. I know that the efforts have been great, that sometimes it feels like there have been more obstacles than advantages, but the fact that I am here is an achievement for everyone, not only for my family, but for my community. Los amo. I love you. As a child, I used to think the building we are standing in right now was the White House. Mostly because of the resemblance they had in my eyes and the fact that I had no idea how far Washington, D.C. truly was. I used to wonder and contemplate all the important things that would happen in this building. That same little girl who struggled in school because she didn't have a good grasp of English would have never, in a million years, imagined that she would one day deliver a speech in this very building. I don't think she could have even fathomed all the amazing things I have done at Napa High either. From being in an AVID class, to being a member and officer of various clubs such as Key Club and Mariachi Club, being a part of programs like Mariposa and Florecer, and even Color Guard Captain. She probably wouldn't have even thought about me performing so well academically, or that I would be important enough to be recognized in this manner. Yet it is happening now. It is no longer a distant, hopeful thought of a little girl. It is a reality that I have been working the last 4 years for. I am now a 17-year-old who envisions herself pursuing higher education at the university level and one day aspires to be a teacher who inspires others. I believe I can do it. I will do it. For my family, everyone who has ever rooted for me, especially for that little girl who once thought this building was the White House. If I could get this far without ever having envisioned this for myself, imagine how far I can get in the future now that I have a dream. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we'll move on to F2, New Technology High School. Will Principal Dev please present the students of the month for New Tech High?
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, NVUSD Board of Trustees, President Gracia and Dr. Massetti. Congratulations to the Students of the Month winners at Napa High School. My name is Abhinav Dev and I'm the principal at New Tech High. I want to start with a thank you to President Gracia. Thank you for supporting the Thanksgiving feast today at New Tech. As we go into our holiday season, Penguin Nation is excited to celebrate two of our students who embody the New Tech values of trust, respect, and responsibility. The New Tech High Student of the Month for November is senior Kayla Rodriguez. Kayla is the epitome of Penguin School spirit. She leads multiple committees in leadership class and is known for her themes during Spirit Weeks. Kayla's teachers have shared that she's analytical, resourceful, creative, and collaborative with her peers and adults alike. Kayla is looking into completing her internship in dentistry and is currently finishing a very successful semester of American Sign Language. Kayla, on the toughest days, you always find a way to bring a bright light and a lot of time through your subtle sense of humor, a lot of greatness to our New Tech community. Congratulations on this accomplishment. Looking forward to seeing what lies ahead of you. Kayla is here this evening to share with the board.
Good evening, everyone. I want to start by saying how happy and honored I feel to be the Student of the Month at New Tech, especially because I love and enjoy going to New Tech. New Tech will always have a special place in my heart. New Tech has taught me so much. I feel welcome and loved at New Tech every day. I'm sad that this is my last year, but thanks to New Tech, I can go to college with lots of knowledge, understanding of how it's going to be like. Thanks to the college classes I was able to take while attending New Tech, such as Introduction into Criminal Justice, Theater, and currently ASL. Thank you so much to all the wonderful teachers and staff for always helping and leading me through the years. And thank you to Mr. Dev for making New Tech a safe learning environment, and my parents for always supporting me and leading me the right way.
Congratulations, Kayla. On to our Student of the Month for December. Congratulations to 11th grade student, Reggie Ellison. Reggie has a passion for robotics and has competed at the statewide level for years. He has recently been sharing this passion with the New Tech community, inviting his Penguin peers into the fold, and leading the charge to reinvigorate the robotics program on campus. Reggie's very passionate about his interests and succeeds in being an inclusive community member. Reggie, your calm demeanor and quiet leadership does not go unnoticed. Congratulations on this achievement. Reggie has prepared a few words to share with the board.
Thank the staff members and the teachers that voted for me to be here. It's amazing, and I'm speaking to a whole board right now. At New Tech,
Reggie, it's not working. The internet connection is not there. Yeah, is it possible if you could call in or try a different connection?
Ecology class with Napa Valley College, and prior to that, I joined the mentioned robotics team, the Napa Cellar Rats. It's a robotics league team that Mr. Dev really encouraged me to be a part of. This year, I've taken that mentality and I put it to creative use, like working with Mr. Dev on reforming our own robotics league team, taking another project where I am combining both engineering and ecology with teachers about or staff about my ideas for my assignment or
Hey, Reggie, I don't know if your camera's on, but if you want to just try turning your camera off, maybe the audio will go through. It was just a little shaky.
Hello?
There we go. That's pretty clear. Can you hear us, Reggie?
Can I be heard?
Yeah.
Yes, please continue.
Okay, hold on. My camera isn't working, unfortunately, but I can still read what I have.
Would you be by any chance willing to start from the beginning now that your camera's off? Because it seems like the connection is much better without the video. And we had some choppiness earlier, and we really want to hear what you had to say.
Okay, let me start over. Hi, I'm Reggie Ellison. I want to first thank the staff and the teachers that voted for me to be here. At New Tech, I have great control over my classes and extracurriculars, and I've really enjoyed that. In the summer of last year, I've taken an ecology class online with Napa Valley College, and prior to that, I joined the Napa Rats, a robotics league team that Mr. Dev encouraged me to become a part of. This year, I've taken that mentality and put it to creative use, like working with Mr. Dev on reforming our own robotics league team, and taking another class at the college and mentoring a future student on robotics with my experience. Workshopping a year-long environmental science project where I am combining both engineering and ecology. I feel like I'm truly empowered by my own education, talking with teachers or staff about my ideas for assignments, and even working with them on college-related programs. It's felt like every single week I've done a little something to build my future. So it feels amazing to just be recognized for doing that, being myself. Thank you for everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now move on. We're on to item G, which is public comment on non-agenda items. Trustee Reiser, did we receive any public comment on non-agenda items via email?
No public comments on non-agenda items were submitted via email before 8 a.m. this morning.
All right. Seeing that there are none in the boardroom, I will now ask Ms. Green, do we have any public comment online?
There is no public comment on non-agenda items.
Okay. In that case, we will move on to item J1A, Napa Valley Transportation Authority Vision Zero presentation.
Good evening, Dr. Musetti, President Gracia. I'm Diana Meehan. Members of the board, I'm Diana Meehan with the Napa Valley Transportation Authority. And I'm here to talk to you tonight about Vision Zero. And before I get started, I just want to, by a show of hands, how many of you have heard of Vision Zero or know what this is? I've got one, I've got two, I've got three. How about out here? Those people better raise their hands. Vision Zero is a system safety strategy. It's a roadway strategy designed to reduce severe and fatal roadway injuries to zero. Now, this is something that on a national level is starting to be considered a public health hazard. This is something that's been going on for a number of years. Vision Zero is not new. It was first came to be, it was introduced in 1990 in the country of Sweden. They were the first to address this issue of roadway safety. And when we talk about severe and fatal injuries, that's what Vision Zero is designed around. We have lots of collisions on the roadways, but Vision Zero is really designed and working towards reducing the most severe of those injuries. You can go to the next slide, please. In this past year, Napa Valley Transportation Authority did a Vision Zero plan, countywide plan. This is the vision for the plan, which is that Napa Valley is committed to an equity-focused, data-driven effort to eliminate traffic deaths and severe injuries on our roadways by 2030. We adopted a resolution to support this strategy. We are asking that all our local jurisdictions do the same, and we hope to see the support from our local school districts as well in this strategy. You can go to the next slide, please. The safe systems approach. This is something that's it's not relatively new, but it's new to us here in the United States. And these are the 6 principles that go along with that strategy. And that's first and foremost that death and serious injuries are really unacceptable. If what was occurring on our roadways was occurring in air travel or rail travel, it would be completely unacceptable. They would shut both of those transportation systems down. Nationally, there are over 40,000 deaths on nation's roadways annually, and many thousands more severe injuries that occur on the nation's roadways annually. First and foremost, we have to think that we're all humans and we're out there operating on this system as humans, and humans are going to make mistakes. When humans do make mistakes, we want to make sure that we're addressing the system in a way that those mistakes are not as severe as they would be in the way that we're dealing with it now. Responsibility is shared. It's not just transportation authorities managing this or roadway designers, but across all sectors: public health, schools, police departments, law enforcement. Everybody has to be on board for this strategy to work. And that safety is proactive. It should be across all sectors, and that we should, rather than wait for something to happen and address it then, is to work towards reducing these severe and critical injuries to 0 before they happen. And that redundancy is crucial. And what that means is once we find countermeasures and things that work, we reproduce those across the board. Next slide, please. One of the reasons that we're doing this is, first and foremost, that safety should be at the top of the list of importance on our roadways, but also that it makes us much more competitive for the funding that we need to actually implement these types of strategies on our roadways. So, one of the funding that we get is One Bay Area grant funding, and that's by requirement this year. By the end of this year, we had to adopt a Vision Zero plan or a system safety strategy to receive this funding. This makes us competitive. Most of these grant fund sources are highly competitive. When you do work towards a strategy to improve safety on your roadways, it makes you much more competitive in the grant world. Next slide, please. We had a lot of other existing efforts. This is not the first time that we've looked at safety across any of our planning efforts. We have a countywide transportation plan. It's a 25-year forecast for transportation system in Napa County. We have a countywide bicycle plan and pedestrian plan. And 3 of our member jurisdictions, the city of Napa, the county of Napa, and the city of American Canyon, have recently adopted local roadway safety plans. This plan is meant to support and complement the plans that have already taken place. Next slide, please. The whole process took us about a year. We worked with a consultant called Fair & Peers. They're experts in the world of roadway safety. We started this process last October, and our board just, 1 year on the mark, we adopted the plan on October 18th at our board meeting. Next slide, please. This is what's included inside the plan. Certainly, it's a strategy planning document. It doesn't include funding along with it, but although there are strategies for how we're going to be able to seek the funding to improve the systems as we move through the action plan. It's a data-driven effort. We collected quite a bit of data, and I'll be talking a little bit about that. And then we looked at several projects that are already either on the books or that we might put on the books on what we call our high injury network, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Next slide, please. This is what our collision data looks like, and we pulled this data from something called the Transportation Injury Mapping System, or TIMS. In the planning world, we talk in acronyms. I probably should have given you all a list. But the data we took was from 2015 through 2021. This data is collected when collisions occur on the roadways. And you're going to hear me say collisions or crashes. We don't call them accidents. Basically, that's one of the things in Safe System, is that we first address what's taking place. And if we call it an accident, that's really taking on the onus that we couldn't have done anything to prevent that situation. And most crashes and collisions are preventable. And you'll see by the data that there are ways that we can do this. The white bars that you see across the top, that's representing all collisions from the years 2015 through 2021. The yellow bars on the bottom are what we call killed or serious injury collisions, KSIs. And there's an interesting bit that you want to pay attention to here in 2020 and 2021 during the pandemic years. As you might expect with fewer people driving on the roadways, the collision rates went down. But if you look at the KSI, or the killed or serious injury collisions, those actually went up during those 2 years when there was less driving. And one of the culprits that we think, or we know was taking place, was speeding. Next slide, please. This is a breakdown of the mode. So the white part of the chart, that's the percentage of vehicle-only collisions, and then the other two, the teal color, are bicyclists, and the yellow color is pedestrians. And this is another interesting thing to see, is that at 11% for all collisions for what we call vulnerable road users, or bikes and pedestrians, those are users of the roadway that aren't protected. It goes up to 19% for KSI. So you can see the severity of collisions for those two user groups definitely rises, as you might expect. Next slide, please. This is a snapshot of what the high injury network looks like. And this is very similar to what data shows nationally when you're looking at where these types of collisions take place. It's typically on higher speed, higher volume roadways, highways, arterial roads where, there are also intersections, and that's what it looks like for Napa County. It's usually around 10% of the roadways. So, while collisions do take place on other roadways, this is where the greatest number of them take place. Next slide, please. We created a series of collision profiles, and we used the data that we collected to understand what those profiles were. And these are about close to 80% of all the collisions that take place on the roadways fit these profiles. Next slide, please. And this is a snapshot of what those are. And so, as you might imagine, unsafe speeds, particularly on non-urban thoroughfares, so out in the unincorporated parts of the county where it's kind of wide open roadways, not a lot of lighting, other things out there, not a lot of signals or traffic control out there, so lots of speeding. Driving under the influence, certainly one. Broadside collisions. Hitting objects, and that means, you could hit something moving across the road, or if a vehicle leaves the roadway, hitting an object. Nighttime collisions along major roadways are a big one, and pedestrians hit it in crosswalks at intersections is another. Pedestrians also hit outside of crosswalks or walking along the road, and bicycle collisions at intersections. Highway gateways, so that would be, say you're entering into, say, the city of Calistoga, where you've been traveling along a highway and then all of a sudden you're in the city. Or highways where there's a main street, St. Helena, Calistoga, their main streets going right through their cities are a state highway. Next slide, please. And then in these profiles, these top 10 profiles, these are the kind of the contextual factors that align with what was going on. So for broadside collisions, intersections, those typically take place where there's an intersection with a minor roadway into a major roadway. And these are examples of that. Pedestrians, when they get hit outside crosswalks, they tend to want to cross where it's easiest to cross for them, or where they feel like they're safer to cross, or they don't want to walk 200 yards down to where the signal is and press the button to wait. They choose to cross where they want to cross. So that's also a common occurrence that happens. Collisions along the highways that serve as main streets, as you might imagine in St. Helena, high volumes of traffic on a daily basis all the way through their downtown. Next slide, please. And through those, we develop what are called engineering countermeasures. So different types of engineering that you can do on the roadways to reduce the severity of these types of collisions. So high visibility crosswalks, not just two white lines painted on the road, but you'll see the ones that are sort of ladder markings. You can see them from much farther away. What we call rectangular rapid flashing beacons. Those are the little buttons that you press with a blinky light that flashes along the crosswalk. It alerts the vehicle on approach that there may be somebody in that crosswalk. Bike lane improvements, intersection improvements, advanced warning signs if you're coming up to a curve on a dark roadway, flashing signs. The county's been implementing quite a few of these out in the unincorporated areas already. Next slide, please. And then some of our countermeasures are also non-engineering, not necessarily reconstructing roads for safety, but sometimes programmatic. So targeted enforcement in areas where we know these types of collisions are taking places. Policy changes, programmatic speed reduction. You've seen that in the downtown core of Napa, where the speed's been reduced all throughout the entire downtown to 20 miles per hour. Speed definitely is a culprit when we're talking about serious injuries. And then routine things as simple as routine maintenance, where you keep the debris clear of the road, where a cyclist might not hit debris and crash. Those roadways kept clear can also be a factor in safety. Next slide, please. And then through the process, we have a whole list of projects. This is just 10 that are represented in the plan that we gave a little extra special treatment to just kind of indicate and show what it might look like as we develop the process. Certainly a plan is the first step to seeking funding for implementing these types of projects, and this is a short list of what those 10 projects look like. There's, I think, around 48 different projects listed in the plan. Even if a project is not listed in the plan, it doesn't necessarily mean it wouldn't move forward under these types of strategies. But through the course of the process, these were the ones that rose to the top of the list. Next slide, please. And you go to the next slide. And this is an example of what it looks like inside the plan when we start to develop what a project might look like. What happens along the corridor? Do we need to upgrade the signals or the synchronization of signals for timing so people aren't running through red lights? And this one is Main Street from Pratt Avenue to Charter Oak in the city of St. Helena, where they're looking at making a great number of improvements, and that's along State Highway right-of-way. Next slide, please. We also did a survey, an attitudinal survey, to try to find out how supportive are people of these types of safety improvements. And as you might think, most people say, yes, we're supportive of this. We had over 500 responses, which was pretty good for the couple months that it was open. It was available in both English and Spanish. We reached out to a couple of different communities who prefer to take their surveys on paper and not online, but it was available that way. We also had an open source map that we use through Tim's in Berkeley, and it's still open today, and it's called Street Story, where you can go in, even to this day, and put in information about where you may have had a near miss. So we know that sometimes things are occurring. Now, basically, the data that I showed you is the data that's available. That's data that happens when a responding officer shows up on a scene. They make an assessment that's submitted to a statewide data collection system. So only the information that goes into the data is what's been collected. And we know that there's a lot of unreported things that happen out there, particularly among bikes and pedestrians. They might have an injury and they might dust off or call a friend to take them to the ER, but it's not reported. So it's not in the data. So Street Story is a way for us to collect that type of anecdotal data. What's going on, maybe somebody's going through an intersection where daily they're seeing people running stop signs or lights. It's just another way for us to find data. Next slide, please. As you also might imagine, when we ask people to change their behavior, that's where we start to see a little bit of pushback. So would you be willing to reduce your speed down to 35 miles per hour in an unincorporated area? And some people saying, I've got to get to work. I don't know if I can slow down that much. That's where where there are trade-offs is where we start to see a bit of pushback. Would you be willing to give up parking spaces to put in a protected bikeway? Things like that. So those are the challenges that we'll face as we move forward through these processes. Next slide, please. Moving forward, what happens next now that we've adopted the plan? You can go to the next slide. We are, as I mentioned, asking our board, we asked our board to adopt a resolution to institutionalize the safe system approach, which they did, and that means in all of our policies, we'll be looking at safety across the board. We're asking all of our local jurisdictions to do a local resolution of support for the countywide plan as well, and they are all starting that process. Next slide, please. Oh, you skip over that, I already said that. We can skip that one. We're going to be establishing a working group. During the course of the year, We had a stakeholder working group that was made up of community members, local elected officials, advocates. We also had a technical advisory working group that had law enforcement, public safety, public works directors were involved in that. And they helped us along through the course of this planning process to develop what's inside the plan. Moving forward, we're going to reestablish a working group in some localities called these Vision Zero Task Force, if you will, and we'll probably be meeting quarterly to address the issues and concerns that come up. When I first talk about Vision Zero with most groups, it almost seems like an impossibility. You think, how in the world can we manage this? How in the world can we reduce these types of severe and fatal injuries to zero? But I can tell you, there are some communities here in the United States, Hoboken, New Jersey is one that has reached zero. Two other cities in the world, I know Helsinki, Finland, and Oslo, Norway, have also reached the number zero. I like to use a story that I saw. It was a video created by a group up in Portland, and they went around asking folks, if you knew this was the number of serious and fatal injuries that happen in our area, what percentage do you think we should reduce those by? And people were throwing out all kinds of numbers. Everybody had a number. And then they reposed the question and said, what if it was your family? And everybody said zero. And that's really what we're talking about. It really is zero. There's no other number. Even if it seems impossible, that's the number that we shoot for. Other cities are doing it and have achieved it. One of the ways we do that is to separate types of users when and where we can. That's already happening. You're seeing some new bike infrastructure going in the city of Napa. The Vine Trail, which completely provides a space for cyclists and pedestrians to walk or bike, completely separated from higher speed traffic. And then some of those other systems that I talked about, where we address safety across the board as a systemic issue, and not just a single issue in and of itself. Next slide, please. I think that's what I have. Happy to answer any questions that you have. We can go to the next slide, and that's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me. I hope that you will. We may be reaching out to some of you when we start putting our group together. We'd love to have participation from someone on the board here on our Vision Zero Strategy Task Force.
All right, Trustee Gonzalez-Myers.
Just in the slide 8 on collision data or any other data that you may have as it relates to youth or our student age group, any data related to that you could share with us?
Yeah, we do have that data.
In the vicinity of our schools. I come with West Park, and that's a street that has sporadic sidewalks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of family strollers in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
So it's one of those streets that just curve. So that's
what we call a
let
crown.
me just walk in the middle kind of effect.
Yeah.
So just curious from that data.
The data source that we use, TIMS, actually, and it's accessible by anyone, by the way. You can access that. I should have put that. I'll make sure that I get that out so that the board has access to that. You can. It's a pretty easy system to use. I'm happy to offer it up to you as well. But some of the funding sources, particularly through the Active Transportation Program, really looks at safe routes to school and has a whole section through that data system that locates and shows what types of collisions are taking place in and around school sites. Yeah, so it is available.
When you speak about having resolutions for each of these, when you look at a school district, what does a resolution for or a policy resolution for a school district look like in your mind?
It looks like you would be willing to work with us in support of the strategies moving forward as a member in support of this. If everybody's not on board, and this is going to be a heavy lift, and as you could see by the survey, there are definitely going to be some pushbacks, things that are important. And you've all been in and around schools to see what the traffic and congestion looks like with the driving and situations that are occurring. But that's where we all have to come together and have the conversation about what are the things that we can do as a group, and what is the commitment by a school board to participate in this and to be a part of this?
What was your sample size on the attitudinal survey? One, I cannot believe on the first one where it says, I support the goal of eliminating. I know there were that many responses, but I still don't know what the.
It was 585 responses that we received on the survey, which is.
But how many surveys did you send out?
Oh, it went out for the course of 3 months. It was an online survey. So it was broadly distributed online, and that's what we got, which is not, as far as surveys go, and we've done many, that's a pretty good number.
Business too, I
Yeah,
get it.
it's a pretty good number.
It's funny that somebody could strongly disagree to the statement, I support the goal of eliminating traffic fatalities. It's just interesting when you actually look at the data. Who says that? I strongly disagree. Exactly right. Okay, thank you.
Trustee Chu.
So I represent American Canyon, and it's a very small community, so anytime you have accidents that involve especially our students, we all hear about it. So I've heard a lot of people worried about that for our community, and I know our city has implemented some of the strategies that you mentioned. So my kids used to go to Canyon Oaks, and we take the bus from Canyon Oaks to the middle school now because we didn't want to fight that traffic on crossing 29. And I will say that all of the new lines, bike lanes, the very visible green, striping has made a big difference. It doesn't prevent people from not stopping at the stop sign, but it does make, I think, people more aware. I know there was a lot of grumbling in the very beginning when that went in because we lost one side of the street for parking. But I haven't heard about it for a while. Because I will be there with parents, and usually they'll, tell me like, why did they do this or that? And it really hasn't made a huge, the outcry hasn't been persistent. And so I think people just get used to it. So I really appreciate the effort that I know your MVTA goes through to have these things implemented into our city plans, and it does work.
It's good to hear.
Yes, that's the hope, right? So thank you.
It's good work.
And it's good work.
Thank you.
I had a question. How much outreach, if any, have you done to the district or principals around the traffic patterns at their sites?
Funny that you should ask. I don't know if you know what Leadership Napa Valley is. You've heard of Leadership Napa Valley. They did a little different this year and put out a call to different organizations and groups, and rather than have the members in the class decide what type of project to do, they asked for different organizations to submit a project. So I submitted a project, and it was selected. And it's just going to be kicking off in a year, so you're going to be hearing from me. And this project is to select up to 3 schools. It might only be 1. It depends on what we have time for and who's willing, what school is willing to commit. And we're going to create a complete traffic circulation plan for at least 1 school. I'd like to see it up to 3 schools to see what are the things that we can look at and do to help mitigate the concerns in and around school. Now, when you think about how the schools were designed and when they were built, they were designed for students to show up by bus predominantly, or walking or biking, which is how most students used to get to school. Everybody drives now. So that's, those schools technically were not really designed to handle the number of vehicles that are in and around the school zones. I live by 2 schools. I have to pass by them. The other day I was riding my bike to work and realized, oh, it's bell time by Silverado Middle School, and the entire eastbound lane is completely blocked going into the queue, meaning all the eastbound vehicles were crossing over into the westbound lane and driving on the wrong side of the road. So before something serious happens, this is something that we hope we can address and find ways that work for people. I know people are busy, they just want to get in, get their students, get out, go on to the next thing. But it's just opening the dialogue to begin with and providing a little bit of education. What is this about? Why would we do that? What if it was your family? Everybody wants 0. Yeah.
And then I have another question. My experience, particularly in the downtown area, is that bikers don't seem to believe that the law applies to them. So what is being done to encourage bike users to follow the law and behave like the vehicles that they are?
Well, you are right. We are talking about humans here. And humans do make strange decisions sometimes out in the roadways. The goal with Vision Zero is when somebody does make a bad decision, that bad decision doesn't result in something heinous or severe. So enforcement certainly is one of the things. We have some serious issues with that, mainly because law enforcement is understaffed, just like everybody right now, and quite a bit in the county of Napa. Sometimes it's just safety education programs. The officer stops a bicyclist doing the wrong thing, and instead of giving them a ticket, gives them a little education moment. Sometimes a little bit of that goes a long way. There are all sorts of strategies to help change that. I'll tell you, we're kicking off the update of our countywide bike plan. The last time it was adopted was in 2019, where Vision Zero and Safe Systems will be incorporated in this next update along with the pedestrian plan. It'll be a whole countywide active transportation plan. We'll be looking at what strategies we need to have. I know that a lot of our unhoused populations use bikes for transportation. They're often riding at night. They're getting from point A to point B, not thinking. You see them riding the wrong way, crossing roads in the dark. They're also so outreach to those communities that don't often show up to a meeting like this to get this information. We're going to have to make a concerted effort to go to those groups where they just don't know or don't understand. You know, there's a right way and a wrong way to do this and a safe way to do this. I don't know if you've seen the signs on a lot of the City of Napa bikeways that actually say you're riding the wrong way. It's on the back side of the bike lane sign to indicate to people you're supposed to ride with traffic, not against traffic. And those actually are posted. So again, I think it does go back to conversations and education and really reaching out to those types of communities that don't often have a voice and need to understand and listen and hear, and we need to listen to them too.
Trustee Water.
Well, Diana, it's been a long time.
It's been a long
It's great
time.
to see you, and I'm going to follow up on this. This is really, I'm glad you've taken this up. President Gracia, my experience with bicyclists is my loved ones getting hit by trucks while they're minding their own business on a bike. And in downtown Napa, elderly people, including my husband, almost getting hit when they're obeying all the traffic laws. I think things are getting better because of the reduced speed and the signs that are up. That's good, but I still have a couple of intersections that I obsess about. And you know, in our schools, we have several schools that are in county pockets and within the city that don't have sidewalks. Mm-hmm. And I remember I went on this, there was this big the bicycle people, the county had, just before the pandemic, the county had this big effort getting people to ride bikes everywhere. And I was just watching people coming into one of our schools out in your neighborhood, Mr. Pearson, and watching them, you know, driving right up and, you know, where they weren't supposed to, because there are no sidewalks. They really don't want their children, you know, walking on the margin of the road. It was, and yet the valley floor could be perfect for bicycling. I mean, it's flat. You know, the city of Napa, most of it is flat. I keep thinking we really could have a truly safe community for bicyclists. One of our school parents was struck and badly injured a couple of weeks ago. So we've got a lot of work to do. I look forward to talking with you.
Great.
Work.
Oh, but I'm glad you're here.
I'm here, and of course, fine.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I'm looking up this street story.
Good.
Good tool.
Okay, we will now move on to item H, reports. Item H1, Board of Education and Student Board Representatives. Student Board Member McGrath, would you like to start us off?
Absolutely, thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you all again. Happy almost break. I know I'm looking forward to it a lot, as are many other students. On October 26th, I attended the first NVUSD Student Advisory Council meeting of this school year. It was a group of several representatives from each high school across the district, and we discussed areas of need for students that we had previously prioritized in our student LCAP meetings last year. It was a good blend of students that were on the council last year and new students this year that provided fresh perspective. That same week was a big game, football game between Napa and Vintage. And although Napa did lose, it was a very positive event. There's a lot of student involvement and everyone had a great time. And our car raffle that raises money for our athletic boosters was successful. At American Canyon High School, our student board member alternate, Mistura, has introduced the idea of a college cram day for their seniors. When she shared this idea with me, I thought it was a great idea. And she said it was very successful. They had their counselor there able to provide hands-on help with college applications. And it was a great way to get all of their seniors on top of their applications. At Vintage High School, they're currently working on their Angel Week, where students secretly give presents to their favorite teachers. And at the end of the week, there's a lunch where they reveal who they are, which again, I heard that and I thought that was just a great idea to connect students and teachers. They're also working on their giving tree, which is a tree in the quad with ornaments that say something that a family on campus might need and that another student can provide for them. On November 2nd at Napa High, we had our Dia de los Muertos celebration put on through a collaborative effort between our Layla, Avid, and Mecha clubs. The celebration was during lunch in our quad, and a lot of students stayed to enjoy singers, dancers, and our mariachi club. I spoke with Alina Sejal Delgado, a junior at Napa High, who played a crucial role in putting this event together. She said that her vision in putting on this event was creating a space to include typically marginalized students that don't always feel involved in school events, as our school has a large population of Latino students. Her hope eventually is for this event to be recognized as a Napa High tradition, as much as rallies and other large-scale school events. I thought it was a great event, and it really brought together our school community. In school sports, our fall sports are almost all the way over. We have our final meet this weekend for cross country in our North Coast section race, so that's really exciting. I attended Napa High's first basketball game of the season, and even though it was a loss, we had hope last night in our win against Calistoga. On November 8th, I attended the dual language immersion town hall meeting at Unidos Middle School, along with some of my ESA program classmates. At the town hall, we spoke about our experience as ESA students and the benefits of the program. I was very happy to have the opportunity to speak because the program has done a lot for me, and I'm incredibly grateful for everything it's provided. At the town hall, I spoke about the relationships that it's allowed me to build with my classmates, because it's very unique in the sense that it creates this core group of students that you have the same classes with, elementary through high school. And it kind of forces you to have like this group of students that you know and you've known since you're 5 years old. And that I didn't plan on talking about that as we went into the town hall. I had something completely different written down. But as we got up there and I realized I was standing with like some of my best friends that I'd known since I was 5 years old. And the biggest reason that I'm still great friends with them is because of the program. I scrapped my initial speech and then switched to that. But I was very grateful to be able to share that with the parents there. I would like to conclude my board report with a brief shout out to a Napa High student, Alina Sejal Delgado, who I mentioned earlier, for being a semifinalist for the California State Board of Education student representative position. And even though she kind of one-upped me on that one, it was very impressive that she was selected as a semifinalist. She was one of 12 students in the state. And that just shows the caliber and quality of our students here in Napa. So with that, I conclude my board report.
Okay, well, thank you. Trustee Gonzalez-Mares.
Yeah, thank you for that report. When you were talking about Napa High, brought me back to some memories when I first helped start the Hispanic Club, and we had ballet folklorico, and I danced during the celebrations there. So it's really cool to be able to be part of opportunities to bring the community together, and to have our students embrace who they are and bring those along with them. It just creates such a fun environment and very inviting. So yeah, thanks for that. I had a very busy month in October in terms of work and traveling. So my kickoff to a lot of engagement came up here as soon as I got back in this early November. So I think I returned to Saturday to town, and then by Tuesday the 7th was an all day, all training, continuing the professional development as one of the board members and trustees to participate in the Arbinger training, and a lot of even in this survey that we saw, mindsets and all that. So it's really important to do that work internally. Just a lot of reflection still from that training, especially with Thanksgiving around the corner. Just the things that were brought up that were core in regards to who just made a difference in your life and humanized you, right? And I keep thinking of my grandma, who in a very just simple way just had a lot of generosity, but just this pure love of seeing you as a human being. And because one, she's grandma, but it just came out of purity. So just like it should come out of purity, trying to create safe roads and not strongly disagree with something like that. So just continue to internalize that. Human behavior is interesting, and so just trying to do our due diligence here at the school district. So thank you for all the staff for their time and commitment in creating that space for us. And then on the next morning, the First 5 Napa Network, which I'm a member of a first cohort of that work that has to do with working with the needs of our community in a very human-centered design approach to do that. We're invited to do a site visit here, and we worked with Matt Manning and Viviana Loera, and so we had a group be present, and we talked about the strategic plan, and so it turned into a working session. And that was really cool because right here in the hallways of our own school district, we were able to not only see a video that we've been seeing along in regards to what we're trying to create in terms of our adults, our graduates, and then the systems that we want to envision for our next strategic plan. So really cool to be able to have folks come in and provide their input. And so just thank you for the district team for continuing to create those spaces for that strategic plan to provide as much input as possible that reflects our community. And then on November 10th, I had been reached out by 2 members who are very involved in many years in terms of housing advocacy in Napa. And so this is 2 folks from the Napa Valley Housing Coalition. Right, this is right up our alley when we have, as a district, lots of opportunity in terms of our land and what are you going to do with that and what's next. So just a really good opportunity for me to listen to see what are they doing, have them listen to what are our goals, what are our priorities for this year, and just a really great conversation about how can we support you? How can we support the district? What can we do? So that was a really great thing, and I'll be connecting them with Dr. Massetti, of course, and the team. So just it was really good. And then while that was happening, it was good to run into City Council Member Beth Painter, who also joined the conversation for a little bit there. So that was just a really a great spot to hang out and have coffee, have a good conversation, and then kind of a little bit of a community gathering there with different folks. And then on the 15th, I had a really good one-on-one session with Dr. Massetti. It's always really good to have an opportunity to talk about what are the goals, how are the implementation of those goals going, and just kind of discuss what those are on a one-on-one level, because we know that there's a lot to talk about. And so I just appreciated her taking the time to do her due diligence and just making sure that as a trustee that I am aware, understand, and just how can I best contribute in that role. So I just really appreciate that. So, and that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Hart?
Okay, so it's been a minute since we've had a meeting, so I got a little list here going, so I'll go quick. Back on October 13th, I attended the Mentis Impact Breakfast along with Trustee Reiser, and that was a very informational session, and it was good to understand their possibilities to partner with us in our work here. On the 16th, there was the Special Education Community Advisory Committee. On the 20th, I got to visit Unidos Middle School for the first time, which was great. And I'm looking forward to having my youngest child attend in a couple of years. So that's going to be very exciting. On the 24th was coffee with the superintendent at Napa High. On the 26th, the Board Advisory Policy Committee meeting. On the 26th, also that evening was a special board meeting. On 11/5, I attended the Vintage High School play, The Play That Goes Wrong, that my son actually was in his very first play. And Trustee Water came in and watched that along with us. So that was a lot of fun. 11/13, I visited Northwood School site. And then that evening, there was another Special Education Community Advisory Committee meeting. On the 14th, Facilities and Technology Board Advisory Committee meeting. Today, this morning, along with Trustees Chu and Trustee Reiser, we attended the Napa Valley College Annual High School Breakfast meeting. And then directly after that, I got to go out to Phillips Elementary and help serve Thanksgiving lunch along with Trustee Water and Director Reddy. I would like to share with you my 9-year-old daughter's review of the lunch today. I texted her because I missed her on the way into the meeting here. Did you like the Thanksgiving lunch? I like the cranberry jam with the green beans and the bread. The mashed potatoes were mid and the turkey was good. I traded my sugar cookie for more bread. That concludes my report.
Trustee Jankowicz.
I met with an administrator from a neighboring school district to discuss their challenges, their opportunities, and where they are allocating their resources, and they in turn were inspired by the work we are doing here at NVUSD. I participated in the delegate Zoom call hosted by our regional director and our current board president. We were introduced to our new PACER. I attended the Latino luncheon where the focus was on Latino leadership and how to inspire youth to pursue leadership roles in our community. 2 students from Camille Creek were in attendance. The next meeting, if you're interested, is focused on healthcare. Went to the coffee with the superintendent at Napa High School. I met with a VP Browns Valley parent to discuss the K-8 program, its accomplishments and opportunities for future growth. I attended a Mentis event a different one, focused on their growth and its potential positive impact for NVUSD students. I attended the City of Napa meeting. Attended the special board meeting focused on governance. I visited Silverado Middle School and honestly had the best tuna sandwich ever. Finished Walktober, where I walked a little over 250 miles in a single month. A special thank you to, and I will never do it again, a special thank you to Julie Pressy and Vera Morales for including me on their team. I attended the NCOE board meeting. I attended the showing of Dr. Rios's documentary, which was authentic, full of empathy, accountability, responsibility, vulnerability, and raw emotion. Dr. Rios generously gave us a copy of his new book, Street Life, Poverty, Gangs, and a PhD. He sent us a link to the documentary, and I hope secondary faculty and students get an opportunity to view the work. It was well worth it. I attended the NVISD Learning Journey, Portland Public Schools webinar. I had my annual governance and implementation working meeting with Dr. Massetti, like Elba spoke about. I listened to the majority of another NVUSD Learning Journey, Center for the Advanced Research and Technology, where we drooled over what could be. We both had to drop off a little bit to attend the facilities and tech meeting, but CART is an amazing, innovative approach to learning. I highly recommend you guys listen. The program provides a state-of-the-art research and technology facility where students design and complete projects in collaboration with partners from local, national, and international business communities. It is so cool, so well worth it. And then yesterday, we attended the last NVUSD Learning Journey. It was called 5th Day Experience. I thought it was really interesting, but we talked about how we don't think we could execute in the same manner given our scale. The highlighted district had 4 campuses and 1,600 students. The idea was to dedicate a day a month, although in the beginning it was 4 Fridays a month and they had to scale down, to have CTE labs designed by teachers and students collaboratively to create alternative learning experiences. And again, worth a listen. And lastly, I was supposed to serve Thanksgiving lunch at Vintage High today, but got in a car accident instead. And I want to wish everyone and their families a very happy Thanksgiving. I'm fine. There was an
Okay.
unlicensed youthful driver, though. He's not in as good a shape.
Yeah, that's not good. Trustee Chu.
Ooh, and it's been a month, so did a lot of community engagements in various schools. I attended a community welcome, actually, American Canyon Community Welcome to our new ACHS assistant principals, Dean Gore and Linda Pete. That was really nice as a community to give them a little welcome party. I chaperoned my first ACMS dance. That was interesting. That was for, and attended Canyon Oaks Trunk or Treat, as well as the ACHS drama, Marianne, or The True Tale of Robin Hood with Trustees Reiser and Water. It's always fun to see a student performance. And congratulations to Miss Summer Hart for putting on a fabulous show. I also attended the Napa Valley Band Reserve put on by the ACHS Music Booster with Trustees Reiser and Gracia. Parade is always fabulous because we never have parades that have so much music and marching band. And of course, the field competition is just amazing. All of the different schools that perform, and of course, our music program is right up there too. I also, I guess I should go back. I did attend the Professional Learning Day of NVUSD and kind of toured a few sessions. Always nice to see how engaged the teachers are and the staff, which really shows how, I think, relevant a lot of our professional learning has become for them. It's really great. I love that day, just to see all the staff together. I also had a government implementation work lunch with Dr. Musetti. Thank you for coming down to American Canyon this time. And I attended the Measure A2 Citizen Bond Oversight Committee, I guess it was last night. So thank you, Mr. Pearson, for hosting that very informative session. I think all of the you guys gave all the answers to their questions. So I think they're quite happy at the CBOC. Apparently in November is the kickoff of a lot of academic competitions, because I went with my son to the Berkeley Math Tournament at Berkeley as part of Mu Alpha Theta, and ACHS's California Academic Decathlon Scrimmage also kicked off. So that's the academic front competitions that some of our students get to participate in. And that concludes my report. Oh, and I did go to the high school breakfast.
Okay.
And served Thanksgiving meal at ACMS. That was a lot of work. So thank you for food services for doing that every day.
All right, thank you. Trustee Reiser?
Yeah, thank you. A lot of repeats, so I'll try to be brief. Since our last meeting, October 13th, I also attended the Ventus Impact Breakfast, which was really wonderful to have, among other projects, highlighted the partnership with NVUSD and the important work that we're able to do together with that community organization. And it was nice to learn about some of the other programs and arms that Ventus offers to support mental health in our community. That day, I also went from that breakfast down to the NVUSD Professional Learning Day, and I'll echo what Trustee Chu said. It's just always a really wonderful and positive experience, and we really put on a classy event, is what I'll say. As a former teacher who's been to a lot of less classy PD events, I think we really knock it out of the park every time. In particular, I was only able to go to one session, but Trustee Water and I together attended the session that was about the newly developed, being piloted right now, secondary toolbox project, which is the social emotional learning program that we use in our elementary K-5, but the publisher and creator of the program is working on one for middle school, and there were a lot of middle school teachers there who were very eager to, and a couple of counselors who were very eager to help pilot that. So I hope that that's going on. as I've said many times, I'm a huge fan of that curriculum. On the 18th, I attended the Curriculum and Student Support Committee meeting. The 24th of October, coffee with the superintendent at Napa High. The 26th, the Policy Committee meeting, and also a special board meeting. November 3rd, I attended the fundraiser for the Napa High Choir, an evening of wine and song at the Napa Valley College, and it was the first time back since COVID that they brought that fundraiser back, so that was really fun to be serenaded all night. On November 7th, I also attended the event that we had here, the Dr. Victor Rios, the screening of his documentary film, The Pushouts, or not his, but the one that centers around him and his work, and then his Q&A afterwards. And I will agree with Trustee Jankowicz that it was just an incredibly moving and authentic and inspiring story, and I just feel very proud of the district and fortunate that we are able to partner with him, because the arc of his life has the potential to give incredible inspiration and models to our students here in NVUSD, and he's just an overall amazing human being. So it was great to have a chance to hear more from him regarding his work. November 8th, another curriculum. It's been so long. It's been 2 curriculum committee meetings since we had a board meeting. November 9th, I had a little full circle moment where I was a driver for the Napa High a cappella group, bringing them to, they go to 5 elementary schools in the fall and 5 in the spring to promote the program. And my daughter is in the vocal music workshop. And so it was really a full circle, beautiful thing to be with her, watch her perform for her elementary school. I missed it last year, but I hit it when she was a senior, so that was the good one. And it just was a beautiful thing to see the way we do that vertical connecting across our organization. I know that Napa High is not the only one that does that. And the impact to see, and I actually even made it into one of my daughter's PIQ UC application thing. It started out with her talking about sitting cross-legged on the floor of the multipurpose room, listening to the a cappella group sing and wondering one day would she ever be able to do that. So thank you to Dave Ruane, but also just generally as an organization, I love the way that we do that to keep our programs going and to get the little kids excited and inspired. November 11th is Marching Band Extravaganza Day. So morning was the parade competition, and then the evening at Memorial Stadium was the field competition. It's so much fun. And I always feel this leaving the marching band and the band performances and the choir recitals and all of these activities, the look of belonging and connection and joy on the kids' faces. And it doesn't really matter whether it's a sports team or they're, the color guard or the a cappella group, whatever it is. As the social worker and researcher Brene Brown says, we are hardwired for connection and belonging as human beings. And I believe so strongly that these, extracurricular activities and non-academic activities that we are able to provide in such wide array to our students really set them up for that, and that's a beautiful thing to witness. And on that note, I then was able to attend the American Canyon play with my theater buddies here, Trustees Chu and Water, and that was made Marian, the true story of Robin Hood. It was hilarious. And on November 14th, a coffee with Superintendent at Donaldson Way. It's always wonderful. Those coffees give such a great opportunity to connect with community and with parents face-to-face in a really personal way. We also on that day, we'll get to it later, but had the meeting with the City of American Canyon. And then last night, I kind of on a whim decided to go and see Elf the Musical at Napa High. It was their opening night, and that is also a really adorable. It's more kid-friendly than the Maid Marian one. It's more for oriented towards young kids. So anyone listening in the community who has younger children, it's really a sweet show. And then this morning I attended the Napa Valley College annual high school breakfast. Nice to hear from our partners there about everything that they're doing to bridge the gap between high school and college and encourage our community youth to benefit from their opportunities and coursework. And then I zipped across the street from my home and served Thanksgiving lunch at Snow Elementary School. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Water?
Okey doke. I too went to professional development, had a great time. The same night, I came here and saw Napa High's drama group put on Wuthering Heights, and that's a very difficult play to do, and I salute them. On the 17th, I had a 10 a.m. meeting at Shearer School, the principal and a couple of students. We talked about dress code, and on the 18th, curriculum meeting. On the 24th, coffee with the superintendent at Napa High School, and a meeting with City of Napa. On the, I believe it was the 28th, I don't know, it was a superintendent evaluation, special closed session. On the 31st, Halloween, I had lunch with President Gracia, truly the high point of the month. And on the 3rd, I went with you, I sat with Dr. Nemco and Trustee Reiser at the Napa High School Choir Gala, and it was a whole lot of fun. And on the 4th, I went to the open house at Unidos where he talked about futures. And on the 5th, I went to the Vintage High Play where Trustee Hart's son played an extremely impressive corpse. And you left out that part. And he's really versatile too. He's got a future. And yeah, he did. I mean, it's a miracle. And then on the 6th, I ran over and visited Redwood Middle School and witnessed Principal Hartnack's aplomb and savoir-faire when all the lights went out. I mean, they've been there before. He handled it quite well. Everyone was calm. They knew what to do. And then Alta Heights, I ran by on a spur of the moment visit, but the principal there is always ready. And I was taking leftover Halloween candy for their Christmas bundles. And so I didn't eat it all. And then on the 7th, I went to, this was a 12-hour day, I almost died. Arbinger Training Day, Napa County Office of Education meeting, and then Dr. Rios and his inspiring film here. And then on the 8th, I got to relax with curriculum. That was just one thing, I think. Then on the 12th, it was, I did go see Marion, and our alternate student board member had a really good part in it. Yeah, and the costumes were so great, and it's just the funniest play. It was really good. And yeah, Summer Heart's great. And then on the 14th, coffee with the superintendent at Donaldson Way. Always a pleasure to go to American Canyon. 15th, a meeting with President Gracia and Dr. Missetti to train me up for being the president. And then I and President Gracia attended the Mayacamas Charter Middle School board meeting. And today I went to Silverado Country Club for breakfast, the first time in years, with the Chamber of Commerce. And we had a really interesting kickoff speaker. It was all interesting. He's kind of an iconoclastic, Dr. Christopher Thornburg. Very funny. A lot of the things he spoke about, we have spoken of, about the our aging population, and, there's an accumulation of wealth in this community, et cetera, that we don't see. And, but he was extremely funny, and he had a way with words. He, mocked the doom and gloom economists. And he's actually right, because the economy is going like gangbusters. Not everybody's benefiting from it, but it's banging away. And I love this expression. I shall use it for the rest of my life. Fantastical blizzard of noise. I do like that. And then after that, and it was a lot of fun, and saw a few people I hadn't seen in ages. And then I dashed off from Silverado. Okay, and the old yin yang, and went to Phillips School and dished out Thanksgiving dinner. It was fun. Yes, yeah, no, I won't. I have a meeting here in the morning.
Okay, thank you.
9 a.m.
Yeah, I know.
So on the 13th of October, I attended the Vintage High versus Casa Grande football game. And then on the 17th, I hosted the delegate assembly meeting for Region 3 to introduce our delegate assembly members to our new PACER. We have a new PACER for Region 3. His name's Trevor Page. So he's helping connect us better to CSBA now. Then on the 18th, I visited Browns Valley. On the 20th, I attended the Sonoma Valley versus Vintage High School football game. Then on the 24th, I visited Vintage High School. I could not make both that visit and the coffee with superintendent, so I went to visit the high school. And then on the 25th, I went to the MCMS board meeting. On the 26th, I attended our special board meeting. Then the 27th was Big Game 52. It was quite the production. And then on the 31st, I met with Trustee Water to practice our AEC presentation over lunch. And then on the 1st, I visited Canyon Oaks Elementary to participate in their visioning exercise that we're doing as part of the district-wide initiative. And then on the 3rd was Petaluma versus Vintage High School. And then the 7th, I attended the Arbinger Leadership Training. Also on the 7th, the NCOE board meeting. And then on the 9th, I was part of the Region 3 CSBA meeting to introduce our new PACER to the broader Region 3 area. And then on the 11th, I attended the band competition at Memorial Stadium, and I even got to hand out an award. And then on the 13th, I met with Assistant Superintendent Manguala to practice our AAC presentation. And then on the 15th, I attended the MCMS board meeting. And then on the 16th, the Chamber of Commerce presentation on the future of Napa and the economy. And then also served Thanksgiving dinner, but for lunch at New Tech High School. That concludes my report. Okay. We're now moving on to item 2H2, Board Representative Reports, H2A, Special Education Community Advisory Committee.
All right, so the Community Advisory Committee has actually met twice since our last board meeting, so I'm going to report on both because there was some pretty important things that were covered. Back on 10/16, we discussed the Napa-SELPA Governance and Administration Local Plan Section B review that is required to be submitted to the CDE every 3 years for approval. They reviewed the process, which basically starts with the SELPA governing body, moves through and gets signatures from the AU and county office superintendent, CAC chairperson, and then is submitted to each LEA's governing body for approval, and then finally submitted to the CDE and is due this year on June 30th, 2024, next year. We also reviewed the alternative dispute resolution process, which is referred to as ADR. This process is a problem solving starting at the school site up to the district level, SELPA level, and state level, and deferring to the lowest level possible for resolution. Parents or the district can request SELPA support if unable to resolve at the school site level or district level. Examples of some of the things that ADR covers would be parent caregiver support, staff support, instruction environmental review, and observation and facilitated IEP meetings. And then our meeting on 11/13, we discussed some tips and tricks for preparing for an IEP meeting, which included requesting a copy of the IEP in advance of the meeting, including your child in the meeting if the age was appropriate, and celebrating accomplishments and the child's strengths rather than focusing only on weaknesses. We also reviewed the results of the parent survey, which showed an interest in attending special education-related training opportunities, including navigating transitions and supporting your child's academic success, and hearing from guest speakers and community partners. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. City of American Canyon Liaison Representatives.
Yes, we met on Tuesday, November 14th. Because we hadn't met for a very long time, we mainly focused on updates from both the city to us, and also we provided some reports of the happenings at the school district level to them, including our strategic visioning and planning process. And hopefully the next time the district is down there, they will help facilitate getting that message out for more parent or community participation.
Okay, and we'll move on to H2C, City of Napa Liaison Representatives.
SRO program check-in, Stop the Violence Fed grant. We did a review of my Commerce Charter School, current school operating, new budget, new countywide charter petition, connection to potential basic aid status and impact on countywide ERAF dollars, the Vintage Farm Project, our strategic visioning and planning progress, property updates, assessing feasibility, upcoming polls and facilities planning, prioritization, community engagement efforts, and then a facilities use update and a little bit of talk about the vehicle license fee swap in Napa County.
Okay, we'll move on to H2D, Town of Yountville. We did not meet. We'll move on to H3, Superintendent and Executive Staff.
Great. Thank you, President Gracia and trustees, for all your detailed reporting. Trustee Water, cracking me up. I see the headline now. Superintendent almost kills trustee with intense meeting and event calendar. Doing a great job. Thank you so. You're doing fantastic. Thank you for all your time. All right, well, good evening, NVUSD community staff and Board of Trustees. I want to start my remarks tonight with expressing gratitude as we approach the upcoming Thanksgiving break. As we approach the Thanksgiving holiday, I want to take a moment to express my appreciation and extend my warmest wishes to all members of our school district community. Thanksgiving, of course, is a time for reflection and appreciation, and I'm thankful for the resilience, dedication, and support of our students, parents, teachers, staff, and community partners. Together, we continue to prioritize the education and well-being of all of our students, so thank you. Speaking of the well-being of our students, I want to recognize the efforts of several of our elementary principals and Director Matt Manning, who are participants with me in the Lexia Letters training throughout this year. The administrative team and myself had our first full Saturday learning session a couple of weeks ago, where we focused on how to build systems and a culture focused on literacy improvements for all students at the school and district levels. I'm so grateful that we have so many teachers and administrators enrolled and engaged in the science of reading training, given that so many of our students need us to do better in ensuring their reading proficiency. Since our last board meeting, I had several formal school visits. I enjoyed my visits at Napa Junction, Canyon Oaks, Phillips, Vichy, and American Canyon Middle School. Thank you to the principals, teachers, and support staff that always make me feel so welcomed on campuses and in classrooms, observing our students learning in action. As the trustees' reports reflected, our strategic visioning and planning process is busy unfolding according to our year-long plan. So thank you again to the leadership of Julie Bordez, our Chief Communications and Community Engagement Officer, and our district's core team that's been facilitating that work. They're doing their regular jobs in addition to facilitating all of these strategic visioning and planning milestones, and it's really taking tremendous effort and energy on their behalf. So I'm really grateful for all of their hard work. Thank you to the staff, parents, and community members who attended those open houses that some of you mentioned, one in American Canyon and one in Napa. Thank you to Stephanie Vasquez, principal at Canyon Oaks, for hosting over in American Canyon, and we were really grateful to utilize the Unidos facility on a Saturday to be able to host the session in Napa. I also want to thank all of those who've completed our survey as we aim to gather as much information as possible to inform our strategic vision, our values, our graduate, adult, and system portraits, along with our strategic plan. Our next milestone event in this process is our 1.5-day session with the Guiding Coalition, which, again, to remind everyone, includes about 80 to 85 participants who represent various stakeholders from our community. Thanks also to the Guiding Coalition members who've been attending the learning journeys that were described by some of the trustees. These learning journeys are intended to inspire thinking as we prepare to go into this second work session. Speaking of strategic visioning and planning, I also want to recognize that I, alongside Director Monica Reddy, Assistant Superintendent Pat Andrew Jennings, and some other NVUSD staff members, attended last night the Napa Valley College Education Master Planning. So they're also engaging in strategic planning. It was great. They hosted a session last night, and we were grateful to be there to provide some of our input as the K-12 feeder system. Since our last board meeting in October, I've also had some days where I've been out of the office and out of town. I participated with 15 superintendents in the Urban Education Dialogue group that I am a member of. We had the opportunity to address California Department of Education staff, the Deputy State Superintendent of Public Instruction, to provide feedback on issues related to the work between CDE and local K-12 public schools. So that was a great opportunity. And I also was with about 25 superintendents a couple of weeks ago, also in San Diego, through our Cal Education Partnership. And these are superintendents that are implementing the two same initiatives that we are working on, the PK3 math coherence, where we're focusing on improving math instruction at the primary years, and then the 8th and 9th grade on track, where we're focused on making sure that our students transition from middle school to high school with more success. And then last week I participated many days. It was 3.5 days. I have a newly appointed vice president, superintendent seat on the board for the National School Public Relations Association. So this was our first board meeting of the year, and I also participated in the new board member orientation. It was great to be engaged on a national level with public relation professionals. These are chief communication officers, PIOs from across school districts with different demographics from all over the country. So it was great to think about public relation issues on a national level. And it was also very affirming when I think about the communications improvement work that we've been doing over the course of the last few years here in NVUSD. So great to be part of that national network. I want to thank Dr. Ainsworth and Marilyn Abalon from Donaldson Way. Of course, Dr. Ainsworth, principal at Napa High, for hosting Coffee with the Superintendent. I'm always grateful for the warm welcome that the principals give when hosting and creating the space for us to connect with the community across the district. And then I want to thank Trustee Water and President Gracia for attending the Napa County Economic Outlook Conference today. It really was, like Trustee Water said, very affirming to hear about many of these external forces and trends that impact the economic forces at play that then have an impact on our enrollment, which is a key issue as we think about managing and leading here in the school district. And it just was really, really affirming to hear professional economists affirm the explanations that we've been giving over the course of the last few years while we've had to make difficult decisions in response to the demographic trends that are happening here in the Valley. And lastly, thanks to the Silverado Food Services staff today for allowing me to join them in serving about 450 Thanksgiving lunches to Silverado middle schools today. It was incredible to be there. I was so nervous. I did not want to be the superintendent that caused a delay in that lunch line. So I was trying to be really focused on serving my mashed potatoes. And I just want to thank Director Kristen Tekill, our Director of Food Services, who just did an extraordinary job this year. I know she got support from Assistant Superintendent Mike Pearson for us to really scale this idea of bringing out administration, board members, Ed Center staff to go out and serve lunches to kids. I couldn't think of a better way to demonstrate gratitude across our system. So as we gather with our loved ones to celebrate Thanksgiving next week, let us remember the importance of gratitude and the power of coming together as community. Let us also keep in mind those that may be facing any hardships during this holiday season, and extend a hand of kindness to any of those individuals who might be in need and in our presence. So with that, we're going to continue with staff reports. So today we have some folks representing, because we have Assistant Superintendent Dana Page, who is away at an important human resources gathering in the Monterey area. So today we're going to hear from Ms. Kate Gauger, who's going to provide the report in her absence from the Human Resources Division. Ms. Gauger, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Massetti. Good evening, President Gracia, Board of Trustees, Dr. Massetti, and Student Board Representative McGrath. I'm really honored to be here tonight. This is exciting for me, and I'm thrilled to tell you a little bit about what's going on in the world of human resources. I'm coming just now to the end of my 4th month. It feels like it's been longer, but that's not a bad, comment on it. But it's only been 4 months is really what I feel like. And I'm honored to represent my team, who's, as Dr. Massetti mentioned, is away at the CalPARA conference. As part of our ongoing efforts to support new employees, Elizabeth Gonzalez and Gina DeLuca have been visiting our new classified employees at their job sites. These in-person visits allow for face-to-face conversation where we gather a really good sense of how the new employee is faring and what additional support may be needed. This practice, which was started last year, is a way for us to build personal connections with our staff, and it offers opportunities to address questions or concerns in the field. On the certificated side, our primary support systems for our newest employees is, of course, our team of site mentors. All combined, we have 93 new certificated employees this year that require the support of a mentor. Of that number, 79 are in our classrooms working with students, and 14 of them are new administrators. Growing our capacity for providing targeted and timely support for our newest employees is a priority, and we are working on creating solid foundations for mentorship at NVUSD. Finally, I'd like to share that our staff spotlights for the school year have begun. You can expect to see an NVUSD employee featured in each upcoming All Divisions newsletter. Our first spotlight this year, you may have seen it in the All Divisions, but I'm going to share it out loud, is on Ryan Phillips, one of our new employees and a new teacher. Ryan works with 2nd graders at, coincidentally, Phillips Elementary School. The question is, was it really a coincidence? When asked about how this happened, Ryan says, I had planned on applying to any elementary teaching positions that were available in the Napa Valley, but when I saw there was a Phillips Elementary that was hiring, I had a feeling that I was meant to teach there. When asked what he does for a living, he gives a wonderful response. He says, I spend my day working with small children and getting them ready for their lives ahead. I get to help them grow into awesome humans. I love that phrase. He expresses a general sense of great pride in sharing that he helps his students to learn how to improve their reading and their math skills, as well as their leadership skills. Another quote from Ryan says, I am grateful to have such a solid system of support in my first year. I'd like to follow the trend and also thank Redwood Middle School for allowing me to go back to the school site. That was the one I was at last year, to revisit some of my friends there, my students who did recognize me, which always feels good, and to feel the crazy sense of, speed and working hard to get those meals out to those kids who are ready to eat and excited to do so. So I feel like I've kicked off my holiday season officially with that today. And with that, thank you. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Gauger. Next, we'll hear from Assistant Superintendent Mike Pearson, who oversees the Operational Services Division.
Good evening, President Gracia, Board of Education trustees, Dr. Massetti, and Student Board Representative Finn McGrath, and members of the NVUSD community. It's always a pleasure to provide each of you with an update of operational services. I'm pleased to report that Big Game 52, at least from a community event standpoint, was a huge success. In fact, in the number of years I've been attending a big game, which has been since the early 1980s, I cannot remember a big game that ran more smoothly from an operational standpoint than the event on Friday, October 27th. In reflecting on the occasion, the high degree of collaboration between the school sites and the district leadership, along with the amazing community partnerships with Napa Police Department and Napa County Probation, combined with the extensive planning and preparation that I'm known for, was the key to ensuring a safe and successful event for over 6,000 people. Specifically, the leadership of the following individuals: Director of Operations, Gloria Aguirre; Director of Maintenance, Albert D'Souza; Administrative Assistant, Marie McMurray; Director Monica Reddy; Director Marianne Christopherson; Coordinator Drew Heron; and lead worker Hector Gallegos all played a significant role in the planning and implementation of the plan. Additionally, the site leadership at Napa High School under the principal of Ian Ainsworth at Napa High and the site leadership at Vintage High School led by Jessica Hutchinson each played a crucial role communicating with students, staff, and parents leading up to the game, as well as playing an active role during the game. And lastly, I'd like to recognize the Napa Police Department and Napa County Probation, who also ensured the entire event ran smoothly by partnering with the school district personnel. Speaking of big events, yes, earlier today, we did serve a Thanksgiving meal. Over 10,000 Thanksgiving meals were served district-wide, featuring locally sourced roasted turkey, mashed potatoes, green beans, homemade cranberry sauce. At our school site, it was called Jell-O. Trick the kids. A roll and a cookie that was enjoyed by all. Organizing for this special meal literally took several months of planning and preparation, and as Dr. Massetti mentioned, we want to give a huge shout out to Kristen Tikel, the Director of Food Service, for her leadership and her amazing staff. And lastly, really great big thank you to all the district volunteers, many of you who came out to us, many of you in the audience tonight and serving and helping us out. We really appreciate all of you coming out. In maintenance and grounds, I'm also pleased to report that the facilities inspection tool, which is the FIT report that is included in the annual school site school accountability report card, have been completed. Every school received a rating of good or exemplary, and all schools scored 95% or higher. As a reminder, the FIT assessment is an annual visual assessment performed where we assess the condition of our school facilities that students frequent. NVUSD has adopted a multi-leveled approach that starts every year in April and May and ends in late October to ensure our facilities are as current as possible as it relates to the FIT criteria. And just to give you an example, though, to achieve a rating of exemplary, you have to be at 99% or above. And so when you're at 89% to 98, you're good. We were good, but most of our schools, but we did have some in the exemplary rate. So I just wanted to point that out. And then finally, in maintenance and grounds, we did do a little celebration the other day. We set a goal and we completed over 400 work orders since August 16th. So we provided staff with a tri-tip sandwich barbecue. However, the donor of that, and who purchased most of the food for this barbecue, was actually carpenter Oscar Caceres. And Oscar did this because he earned a stipend for recruiting an NVUSD employee to come work for NVUSD. And that person is now an employee in our grounds department and fulfilled his obligation, the amount of time he had to serve for Oscar to get his stipend. And so I wanted to recognize Oscar for showing, for this great and generous and noble deed that he did by providing food for the entire maintenance and grounds department. So thank you.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Pearson. Next, we have Assistant Superintendent Pat Andrew Jennings, who oversees the Instructional Services Division.
Thank you, Dr. Massetti. Good evening, President Gracia, Board Trustees, Dr. Massetti, Student Board Rep McGrath, and the NVUSD community. Later this evening, you will hear a presentation on our most recent state and local assessment data. We are eager to share the bright spots and areas of growth in our student academic progress. Some of the work currently underway in our schools to address student learning is laser focused on math at the secondary level. Addressing the goals of annual board priority number 1, middle and high school math teachers completed their first round of common formative assessments aligned to the state assessment, which is CASP, and Carnegie Learning, which is the new high school math curriculum. Every middle and high school math teacher gave a common assessment aligned to the priority standards modeled after the state assessments. Each grade level came together to analyze the data, identify trends, and determine next steps to support improved outcomes for students. As a result, the staff planned activities to support students with articulating and justifying their reasoning to foster a deeper understanding of mathematical content. Teachers also identified the need to emphasize language development and the acquisition of academic vocabulary to enhance student overall comprehension and expression of ideas. Lastly, they recognized the diversification of question type was critical to accommodate the varied learning styles of our students. As you heard during our board study session on literacy last school year, we hold a belief that literacy is a team sport in NVUSD. On November 6th, 40 of our secondary teachers participated in the Writing Revolution training, shared their learning and ideas. Some of the examples that were shared is that the Napa High Science Department, who are helping students combine and relate biology concepts using interactive writing activities. and Spanish teachers who are teaching students to expand sentences using Spanish vocabulary, and as well as some of our middle school students who are using strategies to summarize what they have learned in social studies. So literacy is a team sport across all content areas. Teachers will continue to practice, adapt, and share learning with each other over the course of the school year. To support literacy from multiple strategies, we also have a cohort of 20 secondary English and English language development teachers in grades 6 through 9 who are participating in the Lexia Aspire professional learning. Lexia Aspire provides foundational learning in the science of reading to support students with reading to learn. Teachers have completed the initial training and are now engaged in a self-paced learning modules on word study and reading comprehension. Teachers are also piloting Lexia Power Up, a reading intervention program for secondary students. Teachers were excited to share that students are improving their reading skills after targeted practice with word study, grammar, and comprehension. We also know that bringing renowned authors to schools ignite a passion for reading and foster creativity among our students. We have implemented the new Book Break live stream program, which brings the enchanted world of storytelling directly to elementary students. Each month, K2 and 3-5 students are treated to authors who are appropriate for their grade levels. These monthly events allow students to engage in interactive conversations with the authors. Realizing the importance of teacher and student schedules, each author visit is kept to about 10 to 15 minutes. Lastly, I wanted to share, I had the pleasure of attending the Maid Marian play also at American Canyon High School. It was such a pleasure to see our visual and performing programs for students. And I also had the opportunity to attend the banner review and as a stand-in for Dr. Massetti. And I too, President Gracia, got to hand out a trophy, as you know, on that night. And it was definitely a highlight of my weekend. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Great, thank you, Assistant Superintendent Andrew Jennings. And tonight, Assistant Superintendent Rob Manguala is at the Chief Business Official Symposium, statewide symposium in Southern California. So tonight we have Executive Director Jenna Burrows, who will be providing the report for the Business Services Division. Division. I'm sorry about that. I know you make a lot of decisions in the division, but.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to update the board and the community. The technology department has been very busy over the past few weeks in efforts to support students and staff in all things technology. We have now fully implemented our new firewall appliances and other important security software that will enable all of our users a safe and more secure experience when accessing our many digital tools and web-based learning experiences. Our ongoing efforts to modernize our technology infrastructure continue as we are looking forward to beginning our much anticipated Wi-Fi upgrade project, as well as awaiting approval from our board on the second phase of the network switch upgrade project. Both projects are crucial for the growing strength and stability of our district network, allowing us all to teach and learn efficiently. We are also very excited to start our employee device refresh efforts for the coming year, which begins with another item on tonight's agenda, allowing us to upgrade teacher MacBook devices to the latest and greatest model, which includes a bigger screen. Not to forget student devices, our hardworking tech team has repaired over 500 Chromebooks, in the last 5 weeks, making sure our students always have access to working devices when they need them. Registration and open enrollment for the 24-25 school year began on October 15th. The enrollment team has been busy supporting TK and Kinder families register for the upcoming school year and has been assisting families with open enrollment applications. Open enrollment will close on November 30th, and NVUSD resident families who have submitted an open enrollment application can expect to receive either the offer of a seat or a waitlist number before the winter break begins. On November 8th, Director Miller attended the special education matriculation night and spoke to preschool, 5th grade, and 8th grade families about the enrollment matriculation process and open enrollment options. The data and assessment team completed a thorough analysis of the most recent CASP results and the fall 2023 STAR results. Later this evening, Dr. Aboud will present you a summary of the data. And last, the Business Services Office is working diligently to prepare the first update of our budget, referred to as first interim. We will present the first interim report at the December 14th board meeting. We will also present an update to our expenditure plan for our remaining one-time COVID funds. And on a lighter note, earlier today, Jordan Michaels and Peter Aboud helped serve the Thanksgiving feast to students at Bel Air Elementary School, along with Jen Can and Tyler Gray from the Special Education Department. They had a great time serving all the students and have a great appreciation for all the hard work that our food services staff provide. I heard that the cookies were also a real hit, so that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Burrows. All right, President Gracia, that concludes staff report for this evening.
Okay, thank you. And it's now 9 o'clock, so we will be taking our break. Okay, and we are back. We're now on to item I, approval of consent agenda. Background information on these items is provided to the board prior to the meeting. A common motion takes action without discussion on a roll call vote unless discussion of item or items is requested by board members.
I shall move to approve. Second.
A first by Trustee Chu, a second by Trustee Reiser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on these items?
There is no public comment on these items.
Ms. Morales, can I please get a roll call vote?
Yes. Student Board Member McGrath,
Aye.
Trustee Gracia,
Aye.
Trustee Water,
Aye.
Trustee Reiser,
Aye.
Trustee Shu,
Aye.
Trustee Jankowicz,
Aye.
Trustee Hart,
Aye.
Trustee Gonzalez Mares.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll now move on to J, presentation and discussion items. We already did J1A, so we'll move on to J1B, introduction to California School Board Association's recommended policy updates, September 2023. Dr. Massetti?
Yes, so this item, President Gracia and trustees, along with J1BC, which will come next. I want to thank the policy committee members. This was a pretty thorough review of two sets of the most recent submissions to us as school districts to consider from the California School Boards Association for the regular policy updates. So tonight we're just bringing them forward as an introduction, and then we'll bring them to the December 14th board meeting for action.
Okay. Any discussion on this item? Ms. Green, is there any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Okay, we'll move on to J1C, introduction to California School Board Association recommendation, special policy updates, October 2023. Ms. Green, is there any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, we are moving on. J2, Business Services, J2A, 2023 CASP and Fall 2023 STAR baseline data.
Good evening, President Gracia, trustees Dr. Musetti, and student board member McGrath. This evening, I'm excited to share with you results from two important assessments. The first are the results from the English Language Arts and Math California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, or CASP, which students took last spring. This is a summative assessment that measures students' performance to the state standards. The second are the baseline results from the STAR assessments that our students took earlier this fall. STAR serves as our universal screener for literacy and math and serves a number of purposes, including predicting performance on the CASP. I'll begin with sharing the CASP data. Before I talk about NVUSD's data, I'd like to share some general trends that we see across the state. For context, the 2018-19 school year was the last time that students took the CASP assessments before the COVID pandemic. Students took the test again in 21-22, which was the first time it was required of all districts after the pandemic. As we might have expected, there was a drop in performance between these two data points. Results from the 22-23 school year showed minimal changes compared to 21-22. So in summary, the state was at a certain performance level before the pandemic, experienced a drop in scores after the pandemic, and then saw minimal changes the year after that. What you see here are the state results for English language arts, indicating the percentage of students at standard met or exceeded. And we can see that the general pattern, we see that general pattern across the student groups. At 46.7% of students across the state at standard met or exceeded in English language arts, the state is still 4.4 percentage points below pre-pandemic levels. Okay. Scores in mathematics across the state are still substantially lower than pre-pandemic levels. Overall, the state only increased in the last 2 years by 1.2 percentage points. At this rate, it will take the state approximately 4 years to close the pandemic learning gap. When we look at NVUSD's English language arts CASP scores, we see a similar trend to what we're seeing across the state. NVUSD students were at a certain level prior to the pandemic, experienced a drop after the pandemic, and experienced minimal changes after that. Similar to the state, English language arts scores in NVUSD are still significantly lower than pre-pandemic levels. Of particular concern are English language learners, which dropped by 3.2 percentage points, and something we need to be aware of and address. And as a reminder, English learners are, by definition, not yet proficient in English. And historically, our English learners do perform at a lower level compared to other student groups. Okay. Even though the change in results over the last 2 years has been minimal, when we examine the data more closely by school and grade level, we see a number of bright spots where there were significant increases from 1 year to the next. These bright spots are an opportunity to learn more about what happened at the classroom level and replicate it across the system. So these bright spots include our 5th grade at Canyon Oaks going from 43.8 to 61.5% standard met or exceeded. 3rd grade at McPherson going from 6.8% to 14.3%, more than doubling the percentage of students at standard. 5th grade at McPherson going from 18.3 to 32.8%. And 5th grade at Napa Junction going from 31.6 to 51.6. We also have 5th grade at Pueblo Vista going from 66.1 to 80% standard met or exceeded. 11th grade at Napa High going from 42.4 to 51.6% standard met or exceeded. And 11th grade at Vintage High going from 38.8 to 49.2% standard met or exceeded. Here we have the NVUSD math data. Again, similar to the state, the NVUSD scores were at a certain level prior to the pandemic, dropped, and then had minimal change. Our scores are still significantly lower than pre-pandemic levels. Again, we have several bright spots across the district where certain schools and grade levels saw significant increases. These include 3rd grade at Bel Air going from 36.1 to 44.3% standard met or exceeded. 5th grade at Canyon Oaks going from 30.5 to 45.5. 5th grade at Napa Junction going from 15.2 to 33.3% standard met or exceeded, more than doubling the percentage of students at standard. 5th grade at Phillips going from 7.4 to 16.4%, also more than doubling the percentage of students at standard. 4th grade at Phillips went from 16.7 to 24.6%. 4th grade at Snow went from 7.8 to 17.8. 4th grade at West Park went from 22.2 to 46.7. 4th grade at Willow went from 23.1 to 35.1%, and 6th grade at Redwood went from 21.9 to 34.7% at standard met or exceeded. In addition to looking at our results compared to the state, we wanted to compare how we performed to other districts in Napa County. This slide shows our results in English language arts compared to the state and Napa County districts. The bar in orange represents the state, and we can see that we are below the state average, but we perform better than most districts within the county. When we look at math, we are below the state average, but our results are very similar to the rest of the county. And with that, I will now share the fall 2023 STAR results, which will serve as baseline data for the 23-24 school year. I'd like to take a moment to review for the board and community which students take which assessments. Students in grades 3 through 12 take the STAR reading test. Students in grades kindergarten through second grade take the STAR early literacy test until their reading abilities develop enough that they can be reliably assessed with STAR reading. And typically this transition happens in second grade. Students in grades 1 through 12 take the STAR math test. Here I want to revisit two key data points which are used when we analyze our STAR data. First, the scaled score. Students who take a STAR assessment are given a scaled score based on the number of questions answered correctly and the difficulty of those questions, and allows us to compare student progress over time and across grade levels. The more questions a student answers correctly and the more difficult those questions, the higher the scaled score. We also have the percentile rank. Students are given a percentile rank indicating the percentage of other students nationally who obtain scores equal to or lower than that of the particular student. For example, a student in the 35th percentile in STAR reading performed better than 35% of students nationally in the same grade level who took the assessment in that same time of year. Renaissance then categorizes students based on their percentile rank. Students who score better than 40% of students nationally in their grade level at that time of the school year, same time of the school year, are considered at or above benchmark. There are 4 total categories ranging from at or above benchmark all the way to those in need of urgent intervention who are scoring below the 10th percentile rank. Also remember that students are expected to earn a higher and higher scaled score as they progress through their learning. For example, an 8th grader who took the STAR math test in the fall needs a scaled score of 1078 to be at or above benchmark, and that minimum scaled score increases over time, and by the time that 8th grader takes the test in the spring, they will need a scaled score of 1094. Here we show the STAR early literacy results for kindergarten and first grade. The percentage represents the number of students who scored at or above benchmark, so that 40th percentile or above. These percentages are about 4% and 2% higher than the average of what we've seen over the 2 previous fall screening windows. And since the second graders are taking different tests, either STAR early literacy or STAR reading, throughout the year, depending on their skills, it makes it difficult to look at proficiency rates. And so instead, this slide shows the number of students who took STAR reading compared to STAR early literacy. This fall, 52% of second graders took the STAR reading test as opposed to STAR early literacy. This is up 44% from the fall of 2022, and it was actually only 41% in the fall of 2021. So this steady increase is an indicator that second graders are coming to us more and more prepared for reading than in previous years. We now switch to the STAR reading test. Here are the fall 2023 proficiency rates for the elementary level. And here are the rates for middle school. We do see a downward trend here, but I'll point out that the sixth grade has scored about 6 percentage points higher than the average of what we've seen in the fall over the past 2 screening windows, and 7th grade is 3% higher than that average. And here we have the high school proficiency rates. And now I switch to math. Here we have the elementary proficiency rates for math. We did recognize here that there is a drop from first to second grade in STAR math, which is a pattern we've seen in the past and is comparable to the drop we've seen over the last few fall screening windows. My team continues to look further into this and is sharing our findings with Director Manning so we can look more closely at what might be the cause of this drop. I would also like to note that for all of these grade levels, the percentage of students at or above benchmark is higher than the average of what we've seen from the fall of 21 and the fall of 22. In particular, 3rd and 5th grade are particularly noteworthy, which are 5.5 and 7.4 percentage points higher respectively than the average. And here are the rates for middle school. Like with middle school reading scores, 6th grade is about 6 percentage points higher than the average of what we normally see at this grade level in the fall. And here we have the high school data. And another data point that Renaissance uses is the student growth percentile, or the SGP. The SGP indicates the percentage of students nationally at the same grade level and with a similar score history as a particular student who grew less than that student over a defined period of time. So for example, a student with an SGP of 60 from the spring to the fall grew more than 60% of students nationally who had a similar score as that student in the spring. Students with an SGP between 35 and 65 are making typical growth, while those with an SGP below 35 are making low growth, and those with an SGP above 65 are making high growth. For this screening window, 70.8% of students made typical or high growth on the literacy tests, and 67.44% of students made typical or high growth on the math assessments. Normally, the percentage of students making typical or high growth ranges anywhere between 58 and 65%. And last spring, it was 62.6% and 57.9% in ELA and math, respectively. So for this screening window, we're seeing an unusually higher percentage of students making typical or high growth. Here we dig a little deeper and look at the percentage of students making typical or high growth based on their performance levels last spring. And we can see that it does not deviate much regardless of the starting performance level. When we look at growth by student group, we see the percentage of students making typical or high growth just slightly lower than the overall student population, but generally not much deviation here. This is the percentage of students at or above benchmark in reading and math by student group. As we've seen in the past, our significant subgroups generally perform at a lower level than the general population. And as I've done in the past, I'd like to remind everyone that just because a student is considered at or above benchmark based on national norms, that it does not necessarily mean the student is proficient based on state standards. This chart compares the percentage of students by grade span who are nationally at or above benchmark in star reading and math to the percentage of students who have met or exceeded standard on the state benchmarks, which are designed to predict performance on the CASP. And on that note, I'd like to take this opportunity to compare our CASP scores from last spring to last spring star reading and star math scores based on the state benchmark. And we can see here that there's a very, very tiny discrepancy between how our students performed on the STAR test versus CASP, or just 0.2 percentage points. So we continue to see that the STAR test is an incredibly reliable predictor of performance on the CASP, which just continues to reinforce the use of this assessment tool to predict CASP performance and support instructional staff in strengthening student learning. In the past, we've been asked for cohort data, and so here we summarize the percentage of students at standard met or exceeded based on the state benchmark from the fall of 2022 to the fall of 2023. The grade level represents the student's current grade level, and the color-coded difference column looks at the growth from one year to the next for the same group of students. We have a lot to celebrate here in that nearly all grade levels and tests saw a positive increase, and in many cases that increase is greater than 5%. And with that, I will open it up for any questions or comments.
Trustee Jankowicz.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate your dive into all of this. I don't think any of us will review this data and feel that the progress is statistically meaningful, comprehensively. I do appreciate the bright spots, but the stats beg a few questions. Hold on one second. I apologize. 1 second here, guys. Work off this one. I appreciate the percentage gains, but the stats do, as I said, beg a few questions. We've had task forces. There has been a focus on updated curriculum, vertical alignment, and professional development. If we were to dissect what each grade at each bright spot site was doing, and we compared them to our at promise grades and sites, and we were to compare the curriculum actually being taught, or teaching approach, classroom culture, demographics, homework supplement, additional support and/or resources, what would we find? Is there a consistency amongst our bright spots, and what is the differentiation compared to our less performing sites? How is that being determined? Do we have a set of standards we use to analyze that data? Are we taking a grade by grade, site by site approach to see the distinct differences in performance and assessing curriculum used versus the recommended curriculum or other measurable determinations that will help us move the needle? What can we confirm that is working in the classroom? What is being done in grades that are showing statistical improvement? We don't even know if this is curriculum driven. We have the most recent material. We assume it is understood and being used properly. But I guess the question, is it? I'm not implying this is easy. I'm not implying that teachers aren't doing the hard work, but I do believe it is our job to find out what works and what doesn't. We must hold the big picture as we are doing, but still dissect all the supporting pieces so we can build a framework that is consistent and, more importantly, effective. We don't have all the answers that we need to be successful, so it seems to me we need to reframe the questions we are asking in order to get the results our students deserve. If there are specific reasons that we believe contribute to the why we aren't seeing improved results, I would like to see that addressed in the presentation. Where do we see the holes? How do we drill down as a system? Do we need to be more intentional? And are we being assumptive that the resources provided are being used effectively? And if these children have substandard performance, how do they catch up? How can we genuinely support matriculation from grade to grade? Aren't we then compounding the learning hurdles for these students? And I guess the question is, how do we really want to define our student success? CASP is a benchmark, and yes, we are still dealing with unfinished learning, but we have revised the baseline, and that became the new standard in which to measure against. We have great teachers, check. We have strong curriculum, check. But we have to drill down. Kids cannot matriculate from elementary to middle and middle to high school with substandard comprehension. I don't know the answers. I wish I did. I had the opportunity to attend a conference for 2 days last year that dealt with this very issue. The case study was San Jose Unified. They had tight curriculum alignment, engaged and determined faculty, support resources, and a strategic vision for their work, yet they were not able to move the achievement needle, and the prompt obviously was why. The attendees were superintendents and educational leaders from the Bay Area. We are not in this alone, but that doesn't make it any better. Key proposed strategies were to be in the classroom, and that wasn't just principals, it was the executive team as well. Have intentional conversations about accountability and training from the bottom up. Create faculty focus groups dedicated to challenges, not just successes. And PD that was highly focused, less options, just those that address the student need. I agree with statements that the entire system has to buy in. How do we create that buy-in? Yesterday, I said this in closed, but just to whomever is listening, there was an EdSource roundtable on strategies to get beyond stagnant test scores. It's not just an us problem, but that doesn't mean we can't spearhead the solutions. It's worth a listen. Later in the agenda, when there's an opportunity, I'd like to ask for an additional study session. The presentations during board meetings have been excellent. Content, approach, execution strategies, all positioning students for academic improvement and success. But we are seeing very little correlation between the stated strategy and the impact on kids. Is this an 80-20 rule? Is there buy-in in the moment, but not in the execution? I know we are working hard, but there's a missing piece to this very complex puzzle, and I'd like to know what we are doing to find and define that missing piece. Are we asking the right questions to understand what we are doing system-wide? Do we need to reframe those questions? What questions are we going to ask in response to this data, and to whom are we going to ask? And ultimately, are we asking the questions and designing an approach that is actually going to create impact? There seems to be a spread between what we are attempting to do and what is being done, and the achievement gap cannot get addressed until we understand that spread. This is complex, it is difficult, and I understand that is one of those scenarios that have a constant and a variable, and the constant does not change over time. We will always have students, we will always be responsible for their education. It's the variables, the number of students, content, consistency, type of learner, learning outcomes, teaching variables, et cetera, but the variables have to have scaffolding. And I think we have the big picture strategy, but the implementation has inconsistencies. We've implemented a great deal of the what, the flex time, curriculum adoptions, interventions, PD, and all the other strategies that are effective within their own context in serving our kids. So we go back to the why. What part of this configuration, the compilation of all these strategies, is not pulling its weight? What are we assuming is a constant that isn't? And have we made assumptions? And how do we find them? Everyone sitting on this dais wants to support good work that creates the impact. So if we want measurable outcomes, how do we change how we look at this issue? Because something has to change. I think it's nuanced. I do know our students are learning, but we do have to work within this CAS-STAR construct, a measurement formula. And I, like you, am not satisfied with the results, and I want what's best for our students. We are all on the same team, but our responsibility as a governance team is to provide direction and oversight. We would be remiss if we didn't want improvement for our students. And I would be remiss if I looked at this data and was complacent in my remarks.
So I do kind of want to follow up on what was just said, but I have a question before I do that. So I'm looking at the STAR proficiency at middle school for both reading and math, and it appears that as students move through our middle schools, they get worse in both subjects. Do you have a thought as to why that might be happening?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Trustee Gracia. I'll defer to Ms. Andrew Jennings in terms of the why behind it, but I just want to I want to confirm that that is the trend that you're seeing. Also, as I mentioned in the presentation, for STAR reading, our 6th and 7th grade grades are performing at higher than the average we've seen before. So part of it is that those grade levels are starting at a higher rate. And then with STAR math, the 6th grade is also about 6 percentage points higher than what we've normally seen, but there is certainly a downward trend as you go up the grade levels.
I think it's often referred as sort of that middle school plunge or middle school dip that we were referring to. In researching sort of why this exists, I went back to 2016-17 data and looked at how our students were performing from 5th to 6th to 7th to 8th grade. That dip has been persistent. And in researching academic research, it is something that is not unique to Napa Valley Unified. It's not acceptable, but it's something that's not unique to Napa Unified. It also indicates that what the research has shown is that that transition from 5th to 6th comes at a really critical developmental point for students. And it sort of stresses the importance of our middle school redesign and the work that we've done to sort of support our students as they transition from 5th to 6th and making sure that they have rigorous instruction, but it also in a very inclusive and supportive environment. And so as we lean into the middle school redesign work, we need to make sure that we're also including that rigorous piece of that.
Okay, thank you. So just to follow up on what was previously said, I'm frustrated that we continue to have low scores across the board in both math and reading. The low math scores, though, in particular, are extra frustrating for me. The growth data at least shows a slight glimmer of hope that our preliminary efforts in literacy are beginning to pay off in a way that doesn't seem to be replicated in mathematics, leading me to ask, why are we not able to move the needle in math? It appears it is time to try something new in the area of math instruction. In 2019, the board expressed concerns about the math scores of our students and explained that we needed to improve those scores. In response, the district staff assembled a math task force, which met before presenting their findings to the board in February of 2020. This task force was created to alleviate the math concerns and move us towards solutions. It's been 4 years since NVUSD's underperformance in math was conveyed by the trustees to the district staff as an area for improvement and concern. The district has been working on improving math scores ever since. For a 4-year initiative, we appear to have precious little to show in the way of student performance improvements. For the past 3 years, math improvements have been an annual priority for our district. We have spent a lot of time as an organization focused on improving math performance. I can confidently say after 4 years that what we are doing isn't working, as we haven't been able to move the needle in this area of student performance. I understand that we have just recently begun to focus more intensely on reading improvements and that the results are still early, but the same is not true for math. Again, despite just beginning our focus on reading, we appear to be on the right track with a slight growth signal indicated in our data. If that growth holds over the course of this year, then we would have some confidence that at the end of this school year, we will potentially be on the right track in reading. But the same cannot be said for our math scores. And I'm wondering what it will take to actually move that needle on the math side. Are we not trying the right things? Even if you accept the reset theory due to COVID, we still saw a year-over-year decline from last year. I personally am not a passenger on the COVID excuse train, as the poor math scores existed prior to COVID and persist still post-COVID. So COVID cannot be the explanation for the issue. It is time for us to reassess our strategy for math improvements. The intractability of our math scores is especially alarming at the elementary level, where we have had a stable curriculum, professional development, math coaching, interventions, principal coaching, and yet still we're unable to move the needle in math instruction to improve our student outcomes. In fact, some of our biggest declines are at the elementary level. I'm not sure what the problem is or where it lies, but I need you to investigate what is happening, because what we're doing isn't working. I'm certain it isn't because we aren't working hard, because it appears to me that everyone is working very hard. But despite our hard work, we aren't moving the needle on student achievement. Therefore, we need to change the things we're working on so that we can begin to work on those things that will move the needle. So please investigate and chart a new course forward that will produce better results than what we have received over the last 4 years.
Well, thank you, President Gracia. I know I was one of the ones who presented the information for the math task force back in February of 2020. And we recognized at the time that there was a pretty significant need to address some of the challenges in math. And we leaned pretty hard into our Bridges curriculum at the elementary, and then worked, and after coming out of the COVID, worked to address what's happening at the middle and high school level. And I believe, like, when you look at the cohort data, you do see some progress on achievement. I know that you stated that it's been 4 years. However, the efforts that have really been focused on math instruction have happened within the last 2 years. And so we will continue to investigate and look at what's happening with our math, what's working, but the work that's happening right now with, I think you guys approved the contract last June, where we have a math coach that comes and works in the classroom with our math teachers at the secondary level to give them feedback on their instruction. Like, that extra level or layer of support will show gains. It takes a lot to move an entire system, and I just ask for some patience as we go through this process. We feel pretty confident in our teachers and our site leaders that with the work that we've put into place, whether it's the leaning into our professional learning communities who are looking at student data, whether it's the use of the formative assessments that I mentioned in my staff report, that we're using that to see where students are so that we have those points of measurement within the time between the STAR assessment so that teachers can adjust and modify what they're doing. We didn't have that in place last year. So teachers were last year they were going through the process of adopting a curriculum at the high school level. So we didn't have that in place. So we'll continue to investigate and look at what we're doing that's working, and then stop the things that are not working.
So I will certainly acknowledge that secondarily, in the secondary system, math is not quite as far along as it is at elementary. But at elementary, we have all of those things that I listed: stable curriculum, PD, coaching, instruction assistants, principals going to the classroom, and yet there are some of our largest declines. The grade 2 is 11%, the grade 5 is almost 6%. We are not doing well at elementary, which is supposed to be ahead of secondary, and it's not working. So there's a problem. I don't know what that problem is, but it persists and it exists. So I need you to look into it and come up with some ideas or answers.
Thank you.
Trustee Hart?
Hi. So again, I'm the newest one on the board here. As a parent and as a board member, as a trustee, it's frustrating and it's disappointing to see report after report where we see these numbers not, I know that no one in this room feels these numbers reflect the achievement of our students. I feel that, I've heard that from the board members. However, if this is the the measurement tool that we're utilizing, I agree with David. We have to do better. We have to make changes. If what we're doing isn't working, we need to approach it from a different angle, because it's extremely disappointing, and it's not something that you can have a conversation. In my opinion, I don't feel I can have a conversation with someone and justify having a math almost 25%, barely over 25% fluency in math in our district is ridiculous in my mind. So I agree that we need to do better. We need to adjust our approach. I understand that we have made strides in those areas. I feel like we need to leap forward in improving.
No, and I agree, like we have growth, but not acceleration. And I don't think anyone would agree that where our students are performing now is acceptable.
Trustee Chu?
Thank you very much for a presentation. I love data, and that's my work. And I'm reminded by what you presented with the relationship between Dreambox and our STAR achievements, right? STAR Math, and how it's really nicely correlated. So kind of in the same line, are we able to use this type of data to assess all of the interventions and all the other monies that we've put into all the programs that have in the last couple years? I mean, it's kind of a natural experiment, right? Like some of our kids are at, like, for example, an ELOP program. That's a pretty costly program that we may not get that money again, but at least it's a nice evaluation of, is it worth it for us to spend this money in this way? And it kind of goes along with what the other trustees are saying, is what's actually working? And can we use this opportunity to look at what's working? And I think we have a good data set to use to kind of hone in on that. I know we haven't exhausted all the options of what we could intervene with or how we can intervene with, but is there any plans to look at that? Because we are approving contracts and things that are, a significant amount of money, and we're always cognizant of how much we're spending and if it's worthwhile to spend that money on that particular intervention.
I mean, and we are working on evaluating one of the more costly online programs, which is the Imagine Learning and Literacy. And so we are looking at, we're doing a study currently to see if it's had an impact, that's depending on how much students use that. We did end up, relying pretty heavily on some online platforms to really work on addressing sort of the acceleration of student learning. And so we just like we did with Dreambox, recognizing that if students do 5 or more lessons, a week, then they've shown significant more growth than someone who didn't. So we will continue to evaluate. We're doing Imagine Learning and Literacy now. We evaluated Dreambox. We're looking to see what we can do to support our secondary school students with some kind of 24/7 tutoring that's online that they don't have access to now. So you might see a contract that comes to the board for that, because that's something that students have asked for regarding getting help at 11 o'clock at night on a math problem.
So they don't, I thought there was some access to.
They have access to tutor.com.
Okay.
The library provides that service, but it's only from 3 to 10 at night.
Okay.
And so with this other product, it's called paper.com, students would actually be able to use it during the flex period, so that they needed help and they're sitting in their flex period in middle school, they would be able to go online and get support from that service online.
And because it's what we pay for, we can track.
Yes.
Okay.
Is there the ability for it to extend later, like kids?
So the tutor.com is funded through the library, so it's free to us. We don't pay for it.
Oh, so they set the time standards.
So I think that may be just the contract they have is from 3 to 10, but with this other particular service, then students would have access to it 24/7, weekends, late nights.
And I'll just add from a data standpoint for what my team does. Anytime we have a spreadsheet of data, as you know, we can take that, we can overlay it on Tableau, we can overlay it on the results, and that's how my team supports the instructional division in terms of making those evaluations. So as you mentioned, Dreambox, we were able to overlay Dreambox data on top of Tableau, and we saw huge growth for kids that did 5 or more lessons, which was validated by the Dreambox study. The Imagine Language and Literacy study is happening, so we'll be able to do the same thing with that. You'd mentioned ELOP. Well, we looked at that this week as well, and it's a small sample size, so I'm not comfortable drawing a conclusion yet, but we are able to look at we're able to look at that because kids are tagged in Aries, and we're able to kind of start to pull all that data from various sources and then overlay it on top of the Tableau. So it is a huge tool that can support the instructional work of making those decisions.
So kind of following up on Dreambox, I love that there's this correlation. Do students have access to Dreambox during the summer, and are we actually selling that to the parents to say, hey, we see this, here's 2 months of summer, are you able to, do you have access at home? Are we able to provide some Chromebooks for them to check out? I know all of the secondary kids have it, but what about elementary? Is that possible? Because it seems like a low-hanging fruit to me.
Yes, students have access to Dreambox over the summer. There might be like a small window where there's that transition between the school years, but they do have access. Parents were provided information that was sent home through Parent Square about their ability to access Dreambox. One of the things that we recently started looking at is like, how can we make sure to leverage the after-school programming to have students have time to do specifically Dreambox during the ELOP. Some of them do it, some of them don't, but can we I don't want to say force, but sort of provide some structured time specifically for that. So just kind of leaning into some of the structures that we already have in place to find where can we add some more focused strategic attention to that particular goal.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Student Board Member McGrath.
Yeah, I touch on something that I haven't really heard mentioned so far, and something that in my personal experience as a high school student, I think definitely plays a big role in students' performance on these standardized tests, and that's just a student's motivation for a test and how we approach it in the classroom. Because I can assure you that almost all high school students don't view the CASP as like, oh, let's crush this, let's get great test scores for our district. It's it's like, let's go to class and let's get this done with as fast as possible. And that, undoubtedly results in lower results. So I just wanted to bring that up for consideration, because I think that definitely plays a role. I had a friend in one of my classes last year finish the CASP in like 10 minutes. And we were just like, dude, how do you do that? And that's like, it's just, I'll leave it at that.
Does the teacher frame it for you?
What do you mean?
So when you're about to take the test, does the teacher give it context and talk about its relative importance, or give it any kind of framing before you take it?
Not really. Nothing. Not besides the fact that it's a standardized test. There's no, like, oh, this is what it affects. This is what it affects. This is how we use it in our district. It's not. In my experience, I haven't had that. Yeah.
One of the ways we've started to address sort of maybe that attitude or question around motivation when taking like the STAR or the CASP is to have students go back, then once they get their STAR assessment, to have them look at it and set goals for how they can, improve, or what area they want to work on. So that is one of the practices that's been started. We're doing a little pilot to see if that's something that will make a difference, because I think that is one of the things. If you look at where you're at and think, well, I want to do better, and here's the goal I set, and how am I going to get there, then I think that might also have a desired improvement.
What grade are you starting this?
That's in middle school, I believe. Director Reddy, I think that they've started it in middle, and specifically around math, I believe.
So on the fall STAR assessments in reading and math, we We listened to responses around the intentionality that students may be taking in the context in which the testing environment is. And some middle school and high school teachers from various sites piloted a tool that was really developed by teachers in our district to look at LPAC scores, and where our students set goals around language and then communicate to their teachers as they're going from class to class. So we modified that and then received feedback from students. Many of them learned how to look at their STAR scores and CASP scores, but specifically STAR for this for the first time through ARIES. And were able to give us, both students and teachers, feedback on what's the best place to look at them and what does it mean. I sat in some of the sessions in middle schools, and I anticipated that students may not be able to correlate an activity that they could do in response to a data point at 11, 12, and 13, and I was pleasantly surprised, and rightfully so. Students were able to say, I can read outside of school, or I can choose to do this during flex period, or I can do my math homework, or I can do my dream box. So from that, it took about 5 to 10 minutes. We're looking at how we can do that other places. Assistant Superintendent Andrew Jennings shared earlier this evening about the Lexia Aspire Power Up reading intervention that we're using. We had a team of teachers who decided to after STAR, they implemented some of that reading intervention, and it's targeted support to students in, everyone has it, but then they can provide targeted support based on their responses. And then they had students retake the STAR. And we've seen some growth in students who have taken it, and it actually gave some meaning to their participating in this program and going through the process and then seeing the correlation potentially to their results. So we're going to have them present to our principals and talk about next steps to see if this is something that we can have students look at. Student ownership, having clarity around where they are and what the success indicator is, like what typical growth is, and then building some ownership around something that we can support them with and they can do as one of the highest effect sizes. So we'll see if it helps with what's being addressed.
I would just like to suggest that we are comparing ourselves to other students across the state. And unless you're telling me that suddenly all these other students are like super invested and just ours are the ones that are not, I'm not really buying this as an excuse for our underperformance, because we are performing below state average on these exams.
And yes. And we were performing below state average prior to the pandemic as well. I mean, so it's something that we as an organization have to really look at and figure out, like, what is it that we need to do so that we should be performing higher, right? Like, we know that. So what is it that we need to do? So that's our goal. We are, one of our mantras in the instructional division is just stay focused. We have so many things that are pulling at our attention that we have to stay focused on student achievement. And that's our goal. And so we've been doing a lot of program designing, a lot of shuffling, and it's like, we have to stay focused on student achievement.
Trustee Gonzalez-Mars?
And in that focus, and I think what's one of my takeaways here and continues to be a takeaway is just the starting to get the consistency and relying on the data. And so that's a big piece in my approach to understanding how we are not only looking at the test scores, but just other data in general that can help us understand what are the indicators that are helping us succeed or the indicators that are creating challenges for us. I think for me, it's about now diving deeper and giving the time for the team, the superintendent and the assistant superintendents and the director to dive into now more of the granular information to details like Dreambox, or is it this, or is it that? And I know that's already within the nature of the work that you do, so I'm not saying anything that is new, but it just may be that as a board, what I'm hearing and what I'm also sensing for myself is just that diving deeper. So maybe this idea of this just study session of just understanding what is coming out of those learnings, and what are, I see you all as the experts, right? Are you finding out in terms of what those are? I just want to be really cautious about sending an overall message as a school board in terms of like, change it, erase it and change it. And because that doesn't help either. So I just want to, I want to be cautious about how that gets messaged, how that reaches our principals, how that reaches our teachers, because it can be exhausting to think about like, wait, we have to start all over again. No, that's not what we said. That's not what's being said. So just, I think it's really important to be very cautious that right now we're looking at the data, we're doing our due diligence as a board, having an open discussion about it, and that we're not at a stage where decisions are being made. And I think there is an important space as in our role and the transparency as to how we're understanding and asking questions as to what the information is telling us at this stage, but this is not definitive, right? This is not where it all ends here. So that's just my comment around being very careful on how we message that, because we know how, I think this was said earlier, and that just happens all the time. It just can get exhausting, this idea of like, oh, scratch that and just start, and like this whole initiative thing. And now it's this, now let's mobilize this way. Then it's sort of like, is it ever gonna end? And that just doesn't feel that we can, I know we can be careful about that, right? So, so that's one thing. I think it's important to start getting even extra curious about some insights there. Although I agree with I just appreciated your comment very much, because sometimes there's other perspectives, right? But I also know and understand from data is that, well, this is happening also in the other school districts, right? Where the other students are also maybe not taking it seriously. So that might be offset, that it's all balanced, it's all in the numbers. So we should be right there. However, diving into what can we do to spearhead something here? What can NVUSD, with all the work that we've been doing around professional development, creating a system of cariño, putting tools, making the hard decisions so that there's the tools, and then we can invest in more in curriculum and in our programs. Just, I think really, I'm hoping that we can leave that room for that creativity and not get so stuck and be within these parameters of this test and have that be the driver of all of the decisions that we make, but making sure that we're leaving room for that creativity so that maybe there's some really cool insights, and maybe we'll be maybe that's something, but again, I'm not the expert of some cool research that says, wow, when you dive in and ask students about what they think about the CAS and they shared some insights, oh my gosh, there's some like really creative possible solutions to address that. Like, I don't know, right? Then you go into the how might we versus getting focused on the problem, right? How can we move the needle in that space of creativity? And I think we've been working really hard to create that space at this district as a system. And so, I don't know, there's something to be said around that. I do appreciate just understanding the time frame, right? It's true, right? Like we could say 4 years ago, 2 years ago, but we need to be consistent about what does that mean? And so, and again, it goes back to the communication. So that's just my general thoughts. Obviously, when you look at the data, you looked at it as well, and you're like, oh, what is happening, right? Like all these questions. So I think for me, it's about not being reactive, and being careful with our messaging, and I think giving the team, the room of experts here, the time to come back and say, okay, this is what we found out, and here's some possible solutions without having to, throw away a lot of great work that's been happening already.
And I think that to your point, like you build on what's been successful, and that creates a sense of self-efficacy, and that is what's going to make a difference. if you come at it from a different angle about what you're doing is not correct, what you, to a teacher, and you build on what they're doing well, what's going well, what they're implementing, and you build on that success, and that will translate into better outcomes.
Trustee Reiser?
Yeah, thank you. I have a little bit of a different take than my colleagues on the dais here, and it's not at all that I disagree with the concern about the data, and it's not at all that I don't have concern about NVUSD students and their capacity to read at grade level and perform math at grade level. I am very concerned about that, as everybody is. However, maybe it's the fact that I did this work myself for 15 years, that I have a different kind of understanding about how that it is not a straight line from, oh, look, we adopted a new curriculum and we finally have new curriculum that's good, to the test 3 months later showing improvement, or even 6 months later showing, you know, a huge measurable improvement. Learning is messy. People are human beings. On any given day that they take a test, are going to show up who they are and how they are on that day. I really want to thank our student board member for amplifying again the understanding that we all in this room have, and I know we were a little bit skewered in the public sphere a little bit for, you know, people saying that we were joking about it, but I think it's important to acknowledge that adolescent test takers behave differently than elementary test takers. And I think that I'm really heartened, we talked about this in the committee meeting, speaking of low-hanging fruit, I mean, if we know that 6th through 12th grade kids, and I have anecdotal data from my own students, from my own children and their friends, we have our student board member up here saying that many, many secondary students are not giving their best effort on this test, right? So I'm less panicked when I look at the middle and high school data, because I know that that test data is not actually, and it's unfortunate, and we need to do something about that. But to me, that middle and high school data is not necessarily 100% reliable reflection of how the changes that we have put into place are affecting our students and their learning and their growth. So that's number one. I'm glad that we are piloting some efforts to link to the students that test that they whip through in 10 minutes because they just want to get the hell out of here, and I'm in 10th grade and no one's going to tell me no if I go up and say I finished the test. I'd like to put my head down and take a nap now. And I will say that that is the most frustrating thing as a teacher, and I have lived that when you watch kids that are not able, don't have the capacity or the drive or the desire or whatever it is, whatever combination of factors it is that goes into their decision-making about the way they address that assessment. It's incredibly frustrating. So I want to call that out for our secondary teachers, that I feel the pain of the frustration of looking at an assessment that you know does not necessarily reflect the learning that you have seen take place with your students. So that is one thing aside. I'm glad that we're taking some steps. We're trying out some piloting some approaches to get kid buy-in into what their score is. Because, I mean, I don't know. I think Trustee Gonzalez-Mares, your idea about getting some insights and diving deep from the secondary students themselves. What do we need to say to you to get you to understand focus group of high school students that Trustee McGrath is going to assemble for us? What do we have to do to get you to care enough about this test to actually show us how smart you are on this test? So I know that I've beat this drum a lot, but it's because I believe it to be true, that we will see different data if we can address that issue, particularly in high school. I'm also going to disagree with some of my colleagues up here about there's no reason for hope and there's no growth at all. I don't agree with that. And again, I am not saying that I don't have concern about the achievement levels reflected in this data. But there are signs of growth. I'm looking at the last graphic It's showing the cohort comparison. And in math, there are 11 cohorts listed. 8 of them showed growth, 8 out of 11. That's a big majority of cohorts showed growth. That's a sign of, that's a cause for celebration. In the reading, there are 8 cohorts listed. 7 of them showed growth out of 8. So I really, and again, I empathize with the teachers, and I think I'm revealing some past trauma from my years teaching in Vallejo City Unified School District during No Child Left Behind, where teachers are really bludgeoned with test score data and blamed. And I know that we don't do that here, and I know that every trustee on the dais has acknowledged that everybody's working hard and everybody wants our students to improve. That's why we're all here. We all care about that, and that's why we're here. I really want to second what Trustee Gonzalez-Mares said about this is not a sign that we need to ditch what we're doing and come up with a plan B. I really strongly believe that what we are doing is a process. You do not turn a giant ship on a dime. It takes a lot of time, and you have to plan for that turn, right? I've used this metaphor before. I'm sure it's very boring, but we have been putting those turns, the things that we have to do to make the turn, in place. We finally have curriculum. We are delivering PD to our teachers that is appropriate and that is geared toward the high impact strategies. We have done our best with difficulty from staffing and substitute availability to implement, with the resources that we have, the highest impact intervention that we can. I believe that looking at the bright spots and looking for what is within those bright spots that we might find that stands out, what's going on in some of those particular school sites and grade levels. But I just really, I know that the instructional division is choosing the best available instructional materials that you can find that are available on the market. And I know that that we are implementing them at the district office level, spreading them out and getting the teachers set up for success. So to me, the things that cry out for, a dive is consistency of implementation. I'd be interested to look at attendance data tied to individual students. Like, are there kids that are still missing a ton of school? And therefore, that maybe that's part of that stubborn bottom third that is always in, not showing, that is showing low growth. What are the correlations with the kids who are showing low growth? Those are the kinds of questions that I have. But I believe that the instructional division is making the appropriate decisions regarding material and curriculum and standards alignment and vertical alignment and creating communities of practice for teachers to get better. This is not an instant process. So keep up the good work, continue to refine the work that you're doing, continue to do what I know that you would do no matter what we set up here, which is look at the places we're not doing as well, look at the places that we're doing well, and learn what we can from that. But I refuse to look at the data as the sum and total reflection of how our students are doing in their learning.
Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree. I mean, you have said that it takes time to turn the ship. It's been 4 years. We've been working on this for 4 years. We should see some progress at this point.
It's 3 years, and there was a global pandemic in the middle of that, and we are seeing growth in our test scores.
It's 4 years, and we have not seen an improvement. You talk about the growth in the cohorts. When we look at the overall, though, slide, it shows clearly that all of our students have, as a group, decreased by little less than a percentage point. So a little growth in some cohorts is not going to be achievement that we're going to be like, oh, good, when overall it has been demonstrated that they're doing worse, right? That doesn't make sense. Sure, maybe in a couple of places here or there. And I'm not saying we don't examine those bright spots, and maybe we can use them to inform how we move forward. But at the same time, the idea that we are unable to gather any information from these tests because they are, in your view, imperfect, is just wrong. Like, the idea that because these imperfect tests don't capture everything, that somehow we can't then use this results to demonstrate something relevant to the board, and that it can't be used as a useful tool is not right. We can see.
I'm not sure if that's your summary of what you think I said, but that is not what I said.
We can see from what we have been shown tonight that the results are not good, and that we as a district need to do a better job of educating our students. Now, I'm willing to acknowledge that, yes, it doesn't capture everything in our tests, right? But pretend that it doesn't have everything in there and that we can't gather information that is valuable for our decision-making is not correct. There's a problem. The test results are telling us that something needs to change. And every child can succeed if we hold them to high expectations. By demanding that the system produce excellence in student learning, we can make a difference in their students' education. We must be willing to address the underperformance and set the high expectations for achievement in our district. We can't accept these excuses. All children in this district, regardless of circumstance, are capable of high achievement. To reach these lofty goals, we have to set lofty expectations. To excuse these test scores is to normalize mediocrity, and that's not acceptable, as it merely perpetuates further mediocrity. I hope that you can understand where I'm coming from and that I want to hold the line and demand better for our students.
Hear from the other teacher.
Sure, absolutely.
And I have some comments to close.
Okay.
Trustee Water?
Yes, well, I'd like to tell you that I agree with practically everybody sitting up here. All of you said something that I can buy into. And I realize that I'm naturally a sunny person because, well, first of all, we have some students of the month talking tonight. Okay, so we've got to be, did you hear those people? Yeah, we're doing something right. I also taught 11th graders who entered my class, absolute squirrels, and when they left, they were mature young people who were, you know, ready to accept all sorts of challenges. Yes, our test scores do need improvement. At the same time, I know our teachers are working hard, and I've absolutely been there. And I know that my broken record is program improvement. You said that our test scores were bad, were low, before we started making changes. They were low in spite of the federal government throwing a ton of money at us and forcing us to make all sorts of changes, such as eliminating full-length works of literature. That's what our consultants did. Let's see, we had one consultant who told us that homework was child abuse and or something along those lines when educational malpractice. When, look, you have to read a book at home. You've got to do the reading at home. You've got to study at home. And functional, you know, high functioning homework helps you perfect your skills in subjects like math, correct? And it's just, it was unbelievable. And the year I retired, and I'm not blaming the principal, I'm blaming, I really am, I'm blaming people who work for the school district and administration. The year I left, we had a bunch of things coming at us. We were going to become a new tech school. We were still going through program improvement. Yes, we had a lot of technology coming at us. Project-based learning, we were going to go for project-based learning big time. There were a lot of changes being made, and it didn't raise the test scores appreciably, did it? All of this was, and nationally, it was a failure as a program, and the people who were responsible for that failure are still around. They're highly paid consultants. They have never been taken to task. And if I sound bitter about that, I'm extremely bitter. Because if it hadn't been for that, I would have had a couple more years left, but I just couldn't do it. And the other thing, and so I do respect what teachers do. And I am going to look at the bright spots. First of all, I'm going to look at the tests. I don't look at tests as tests. I look at them as tools to find out what is going on. And, what are the principles? What are the concepts that the students aren't getting? Are we using, I don't know, I'm assuming we are, but, I'd like to make sure that we're using the test results as sort of a blueprint for what we need to be teaching. And I did visit the principal of McPherson last spring and was extremely impressed with what I saw. And as we know, that's a very needy school. And he said, okay, we're not going to blast through the stratosphere with our test scores, or words to that effect. He said, though, but we are going to see some growth. We're going to be seeing growth. And one of the things that happened when I was working was that people would do something and they'd say, it's not working. And then we'd shift gears and do something else, okay, we're going to keep the kids who have emotional issues in one section of the school, and they're never going to leave it, and they're all going to have their classes, right? Well, I don't know that really worked. And, they sort of felt like prisoners. Okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And it just, we didn't stay with anything long enough to see if it was going to work. It just, the people who work down the hall would say, oh no, we're going to do something else. So I would like us, not me, might scare people, but I would like other people who work here to go into the schools that showed good results, because as you said, we have some bright spots. I would like for people to go into the classrooms, do some observations, and see what's going on. We've got, like with our students of the month from Napa High, I used to work with them, very charismatic people. They get good results. And what is going on? Can we do that? Can we go into the schools that that have successful test scores and find out what is going on? What are they doing differently? I am a little disturbed at the discrepancy between a couple of our middle schools. And as you know, I believe that there is nothing like a full-length book to encourage people to develop their attention span. Okay, the complicated novel is a wonderful tool. It's it helps people figure things out. And I've never understood how come Study Sync became the main text in middle school English classes when it was initially created to be a supplement to help teachers, so they wouldn't have to go around like I did and go to a million different books, make copies and things like that. So those are my 2 cents. I think that I know our teachers work, again, I repeat, our teachers work hard. They have been through the mill, and I think that we need to explore how is the success being cultivated. And I don't want to go around punishing people. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Massetti?
Yeah, thank you very much. So I just want to kind of take a collective breath and pause here for a minute. I know this discussion can generate a sense of discomfort, and I want to take us out of our local boardroom here at 10:30 at night and remind ourselves that this is actually a tremendous privilege and opportunity, that we have a school board that is engaged and this highly engaged around student achievement, that we're in the boardroom, it's pretty quiet, and we're in here debating and discussing what are the best ways to support students and generate improvement outcomes on some student achievement measures. So I hope everybody just, if you were feeling discomfort, you just kind of snap out of it and realize what a gift and privilege that is, because that's not what's happening in boardrooms across the country right now. So I just kind of need to start by naming that, because it's helping me kind of sink into the issue comfortably. And I just to set a little bit of context as we think about some of the themes that emerged as the trustees reflected on the data. So Dr. Aboud, thank you for your thorough and clear presentation of the data. That's also just a real gift in the organization when we can look at data in a way where it feels consumable. It feels like we can have these kinds of discussions. That's also not something to be taken for granted. And of course, thank you to the instructional division for all of the work that you're doing in response to the data, very much anchored in the priorities that have been set by the trustees to my left. So I want to appreciate everyone's efforts, and again, appreciate the dialogue from the trustees, because that is something we need to appreciate. Contextually, I think we need to remember that over the course of the last few years since the pandemic happened, the 4 years that we've been immersed in educating students during this unique period, we've also simultaneously been hit with the most one-time money and the greatest explosions of dollars in California public education in decades. In response to that, we, alongside school districts up and down the state of California, made a lot of purchases. We made a lot of investments. We took care of things that have historically NVUSD didn't have the capability to take care of. Purchased curriculum across the board, became one-to-one, purchased digital intervention platforms, erected a cadre of interventionists at the elementary, closed schools, consolidated schools, rebuilt programs amidst all of that. And so there has been a lot going on contextually amidst some of these improvement efforts. And we've been talking over the course of the last few months that we are in a position of strength. We are in a position of stability. And we brought on a lot of things. We centralized a lot of those tools that have been mentioned. And so I also don't want to get into the game of this new tool, or if we have this expansion on contract X, it's the thing that's going to do it, right? We have a lot of tools. We have what we need. And I think that's some of as I reflect on your comments tonight, trustees, it's, I would imagine putting myself in your shoes. Being a board, many of you sitting here have made very, very difficult decisions to position the district to be able to provide classrooms what they need to maximize student achievement and get better outcomes. And so I understand your urgency, maybe a tad of impatience around wanting to see results, because after you make difficult decisions and you get a district to a more stable place, it is, of course, just naturally human to want to see a return on these investments and on the efforts and on the difficult decisions that you made. So I can appreciate that, and I hope that we as a staff can appreciate that, and just hold that and value that and understand that. It makes a lot of sense. And one-time monies are starting to get pulled back. We know the COLA is going to come in much lower next year. We know there's an economic downturn, potentially around the corner. And at least, I don't want to buy into any fear narratives around the economy, but we do know that dollars coming towards our school system are going to be less in the immediate future. And so it's a natural, organic opportunity for us to assess what are the best tools and the best investments to hunker down around. And more importantly, in that discernment and selection, really determine what do we need to do to build a culture of, I'm going to use the word accountability and integrity, but I'm not going to use accountability in the way that it can be weaponized or fear-inducing. Accountability really just means responsibility for our actions, taking responsibilities for our actions. And it is our responsibility to improve the student achievement levels in numeracy, math, in literacy, in English language arts for our students. And so I encourage us to not blame. I echo Trustee Gonzalez-Mares' suggestion to get really curious and ask the right questions, and to get really serious about our assessment around what are going to be the tools that are going to make the greatest impact. how we're going to build a culture around this data and how we're going to build a culture that knows how to respond to this data through curiosity, asking questions. I think of our Arbinger training. Do we have the relationships with teachers in the classrooms and our principals? Are we listening and learning around what works? Are we communicating with them and doing all those things before we get into a corrective mode, which is the top of that Arbinger pyramid, and not look at correction, but instead build relationships, listen and learn, really figure out, to Trustee Waters' suggestion, we had grade levels at schools making double-digit growth, some in both ELA and math. I am so curious, are we celebrating that? Are the principals at those sites celebrating that? Do we know those teachers' names? Are they aware that they made gains way above the averages in the district, average performance in the district? What is our organizational awareness about those bright spots and those successes? And how are we going to leverage them to see if they are scalable and replicable? Because that's infectious and contagious when teachers hear colleagues are doing things that are working. They want things to work too for their kids. And we also know teachers in our classroom and our principals are dealing with a lot at school sites with a lot of the behavioral challenges that have emerged post-COVID and whatnot. And everybody in education is talking about that. So, what investments do we need to abort and maybe respond to some of those behavioral supports that teachers need, that principals say schools need? It is a time to reevaluate the investments that we've been making. So I think this is an incredible opportunity. And I'm just going to say that as a superintendent, I do want to set a very clear expectation that I think what you might be hearing from the trustees, and trustees, you can tell me if I'm wrong, is that I often emphasize to the school board that we have conditions here that a lot of school districts don't have. We have positive labor relations. We have stability on the school board. We have stability in building leadership and district leadership. And we don't have the financial issues that plagued us 5 years ago. I often say that those are optimal conditions to improve student achievement. So if we have more optimal conditions than most K-12 districts in California, I'm expecting us to start at least hitting those state averages or performing above those state averages. Because we do have students that have a lot of need. We have socioeconomically disadvantaged students. We have to do a lot more improvement work for our multilingual learners. They're historically underperforming, and they are in a district that has better conditions than many of our California K-12 public counterparts. I want us as staff to leverage those conditions and create better outcomes for all the students that deserve it. And so let's aim to not distance ourselves from the state average, because we are. I know we were performing back 5-7 years ago below the state average, but we are lower than we were below that state average after bringing in a lot of improvement efforts. And so we have to get really curious about that. We have to inspect, why are we getting more distant than the state average despite our optimal conditions? So I'm really excited. I think it's a great opportunity to ask questions, get curious, and at a time when the conditions and external forces that are always at play and put pressure on public school systems are right around the corner again, because they come in waves. And here comes the next wave. How do we leverage that challenge, that pressure, to optimize around our decision making and make the best decisions possible, the most strategic, the most targeted? And I will ask myself, what can I do as your superintendent to be of better service in that effort? And I will continuously communicate that commitment to the school board and how we're doing on that commitment. So thank you for listening. And thank you for engaging in this dialogue.
I'd like to move that we extend our meeting to midnight.
I'll second.
First by myself, a second by Trustee Chu. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstentions? Opposition? Motion passes. Okay, moving on to K, action items. K1, business services. K1A, agreement with Burnham Benefits Insurance Services.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by trustee Chu, second by trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Seeing no discussion, Student Board Member McGrath?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. K1B, Network Switch Project Phase 2 Agreement with AMS.net.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by trustee Chu, second by trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Student Board Member McGrath?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I wanted to circle back just for a moment. We did not take public comment on the STAR presentation. Ms. Green, is there anyone who would want to raise their hand and make a public comment on our STAR data presentation?
There is no public comment on this item.
Okay, thank you. K1C, purchase agreement with Apple Inc.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, a first by trustee Chu, a second by trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
I wanted a brief moment to make a statement. So I will again renew my objection to paying the Apple tax when a similarly equipped PC can be had for less money. When we are buying in the quantities that we are talking about, we can potentially save between $100,000 to $200,000 by choosing not to pay the Apple tax. Or we could get better equipped computers that have more bells and whistles. So I don't think it makes sense to continue on the Apple train.
Actually, can I ask a question about Apple? Maybe Mr. Michaels can come in. So I know when we talk about technology and facilities and technology committee, we heavily focus on how secure our data is and all of the firewalls that we approve and all of that stuff going in. So what is the difference in how easy it is to secure an Apple product versus a PC, let's say? Is there a I'm just curious whether this is one of those decision-making factors.
There is a difference. There's not as much of a difference as maybe it used to be sort of advertised. We do actually have security software that's deployed to both our Windows and our Apple devices, and it is the same security software. What puts Apple sort of aside from the Windows world is it's a much smaller target for the attackers of the world, and that's still pretty much the same because I could get very sort of in the weeds on this, but like technically the operating system is just built a little bit differently and a little bit safer from the ground up than a standard Windows operating system. So.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Green, did we have public comment on this already?
It looks like we do have public comment. Chris Reddy.
Okay. Mr. Reddy, are you?
Yes, hello, members of the board. I would just like to highlight that I've used both the Windows PC products as a teacher and the MacBook products the Mac products as a teacher. And there is a significant difference in performance between the two, especially with the new generation of the MacBook processors. They just work better. So that's been my experience. And so I have an interest in continuing to consider that performance as a factor in making those decisions. So thank you.
Do we have any more public comment?
There is no additional public comment.
Thank you. So we've had our motions already. Student Board Member McGrath? Aye. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Abstentions? Motion passes. K2, Human Resources. K2A, Student Calendars for years 24-25, 25-26, and 26-27.
I move to approve.
Second.
First by Trustee Chu, second by Trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Student Board Member McGrath? Aye. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. K2B, the 23-24 salary schedule.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by Trustee Chu, second by Trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Student Board Member McGrath? Aye. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. K2C, request to hire educator less than fully credentialed.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by Trustee Chu, second by Trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Student Board Member McGrath? Aye. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. K2D, Napa Valley College Pediatric Nursing Preceptorship Memorandum of Understanding.
Move to approve.
Second.
Wait, who had the motion there? Sorry. First by Trustee Chu, second by Trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Okay. Student Board Member McGrath? Aye. All those in favor?
Aye.
K2E, Nelson Connects Staffing Services.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, first by Trustee Chu, second by Trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Student Board Member McGrath? Aye. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. K3, Instructional Services. K3A, K-12 Strong Workforce Program, Round 6, Addressing Equity through Internship and Transition to Community College.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by Trustee Chu, second by Trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Student Board Member McGrath? Aye. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. K3B, ratification of agreement with Adroit Advanced Technologies, Inc.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by Trustee Chu, second by Trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Student Board Member McGrath? Aye. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. K3C, agreement with Educational Encounters DBA Sylvan Learning of Napa.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by Trustee Chu, second by Trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Student Board Member McGrath? Aye. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. K3D, agreement with Professional Learning International.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by Trustee Chu, second by Trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Student Board Member McGrath? Aye. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. K3E, agreement with Soliant Health LLC.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by trustee Chu, second by trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Student Board Member McGrath?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. K3F, contract with Ellis Flooring for Napa Valley Adult Education.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by trustee Chu, second by trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Student Board Member McGrath?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Opposed, abstentions? All right. K4, operational services, K4A, surplus of transportation school buses.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by trustee Chu, second by trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Student Board Member McGrath?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. K4B, request to purchase school bus.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by trustee Chu, second by trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Student Board Member McGrath?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. K5, school planning and construction, K5A, SPC 21.50-17, vintage farm sublease agreement for early procurement.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by trustee Chu, second by trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Student Board Member McGrath?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. K5B, SPC 21.49-17, amendment to Vintage Farm Project Initial Study and Mitigated Negative Declaration.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by trustee Chu, second by trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Student Board Member McGrath?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. K5C, SPC 1.11-24, CA plus SA, Architectural Services, Vintage High School.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by trustee Chu, second by trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Student Board Member McGrath?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. K5D, SPC 1.13-24, Design Services with Chaudhry and Associates.
Move to approve.
Second.
First by trustee Chu, second by trustee Riser. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Student Board Member McGrath?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. On to L, informational, L1, general services, L1A, curriculum and student support committee. Ms. Green, is there any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Okay, the minutes are attached. Is there any discussion desired by the board? Seeing none, we will move on to item L1B, facilities and technology. There was a meeting, but the minutes will not come until our next meeting. So nothing to see there. Finance is the next one, L1C. The committee has not met, so we'll move on to L1D, which is the policy committee. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Okay, the minutes are attached. Is there any discussion by trustees requested on this item? All right, seeing none, we will move on to L2, business services. L2A, quarterly investment report, September 30th, 2023. Ms. Green, is there any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Okay, do we have any discussion from the board on this item? Seeing none, we will move on to L2B, the enrollment report, Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
Okay. Do we have any discussion from trustees on this item? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 3, Human Resources. L3A, Quarterly Report on Williams Uniform Complaints. Ms. Green, do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment on this item.
All right. Any board discussion on this item? Seeing none, we will move on. We are now on to item M, additional suggestions and comments from board members and the superintendent.
You go ahead first. Oh, is that for me? I would just like, when it seems appropriate with instruction, I would like to follow up on having an additional study session, just so that we are collaboratively understanding where we are, where we're going, so we can be supportive of the work that's being done, understand what's being done, and be involved in a way that is productive in a level of understanding. So you're going to kind of have to drive that timing to let us know, but I would like to see that happen. Do you have a timing expectation, President Gracia?
No, I think that we can put it on the calendar and let the
work drive the timing.
Yeah, instruction division let us know sometime probably within the next 6 months or so when it would be appropriate to have some sort of further update. Yeah.
Can I ask a clarifying question in terms of the request from the board? Is this a separate study session or just also a presentation that can be used during a meeting, right? Like, I'm just trying to.
Whatever the appropriate structure is at that time.
like-
I don't have any expectations as far as structure. I think it's important for us to understand the data as it accumulates. I think it's important, you just made a
I was
point
just,
about.
format is different. When we say study session, it pulls a whole other day. It's like 3 hours or more of
I
a
am far less
follow-up
concerned
and just
about
keep it
format.
open.
I want us as a board to make sure that we are informed and consistently, so that we understand that if there are improvements being made or if there are changes being made, that we understand them, that we can speak to them. And when it comes to a presentation, that we have a better understanding of where we are. And I think that.
So the flexibility is there.
It sounds like flexibility to either, if necessary, have a study session or just have a report at a future board meeting.
Whatever
depending
works.
On what it appears is appropriate.
Yeah, and I would add, and I will work with staff on this, and I would add that there are natural opportunities as we engage in budget development and as we look at the STAR midterm, right? That's what we call it, Dr. Bood? The STAR midterm data that we bring. So there'll be some other natural opportunities for follow-up, and I would encourage us to leverage those as we go through budget development and we start bringing in the spring all of the items for 24, 25. There can be sort of explanations around, why this investment, and why.
And is this working? And
other
we have found this.
Other investments will fall off. And so we'll maybe get explicit around items that we bring to the board around, what are our drivers around continuing particular contracts, tools.
I would want some clarification around, like, because the scope of it or the scale of what information the board is looking for.
Yeah, from what I'm hearing, and again, I'll work with staff and I'll work with the board president to liaison and kind of get clear around that. But what I think I'm hearing is that in response to tonight's discussion around what's working, what's not working, in relation to the current results that we were examining, what are some ways that we can make explicitly visible to the board sort of our response to the data, right? Whether it's leaning into things that we're currently doing, right? Or whether it's we're making adjustments and just explicitly maybe calling those out as we bring forth items to the board, thinking about the midterm and how we would present that data and what else alongside that data do we need to present?
It would seem like it would make sense to follow sometime after the midterm STAR assessment data, mainly because this STAR assessment data is based on students who haven't had any instruction in that grade level for the most part, so.
Yeah. I also just did want to add additional comments, and I forgot to name them when I was commenting, and I know we all want to go home and it's late. However, I'm also grateful that there was a little bit of space between making this comment and the comments that we were deeply engaged in relation to NVUSD data and in comparison with the state. However, Dr. Abood did present a slide around Napa County data that I think we just sort of glossed over. And just for the record, I kind of want to just name something around that. I did ask Assistant Superintendent Mangwala to work with his team and Dr. Abood to elevate county comparison. I've worked in other counties. It's very typical for county comparisons to be just part of what we do when we look at data within your respective county. We are a small county. There's only 5 districts. The other 4 districts are much smaller than us, so I can understand why that's not habitualized here. But nonetheless, I think it's important because we've been dealing with educational issues countywide. And so I think it's important to just look at countywide data and take a glimpse as we examine data, especially around the common student state performance measures. So I just want to say there's been a lot of chatter countywide about small schools, lower class size, absolutely being the non-negotiables in making the difference in student achievement. And I just want to note that despite dramatically lower class size, much smaller schools, and 2 to 3 times the amount of funding in the Up Valley Basic Aid districts, we are not seeing a dramatic difference between their performance and our student performance. And in fact, in some cases, we are outperforming, despite the fact that there's 3 times the amount of funding, much lower class size, and small school settings. And so I just think it's important to elevate that point as we think about, oh, things aren't working here and whatnot. You know, I would sit here and argue that if I had $35,000 per student, a lot of these achievement challenges, I feel like we would be positioned to accelerate the growth. And we're seeing even in districts where there's small class size, small school settings, and $30,000 to $35,000 per kid, there's not dramatically better performance than us, especially when you look at unduplicated rates. So I just have a lot of curiosities around that. And that is something I will continue to monitor because we do engage in countywide discussions around achievement and school settings constantly. So that's important, especially as people advocate and insist that only small schools with class size are the only way to make a difference when it comes to student performance. That's clearly not playing out in our own local county.
Other comments or suggestions from the board? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item N, which is future agenda items.
I think we covered that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I felt like we kind of did that under M. Anything else though, just in case? No? Okay. Then I will move on to item O, adjournment. I move that we adjourn.
I second.
The first by myself, a second by trustee Gonzalez Maris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 11:04.